Consequence Podcast Network.
My friendship to all of you precludes my involvement with any one of you. But if you wanna make love, then I do too, and I'll be right there behind you. All in the name of oh, all in the name of oh, all in the name of
Greetings, constant listeners, and welcome yet again to The Losers Club, a Stephen King podcast from Consequence of Sound. Well, it's a big one today in terms of the book and the episode. We're talking about The Talisman, which is a book that Stephen King co-wrote with Peter Straub. They released it in 1984. It's one of several King books that approaches the 1,000-page mark, depending on your edition. But there are some where it has reached that. But and it's a fantasy epic about a boy's journey across America, two different worlds, to get a artifact that basically binds all worlds.
That's correct.
And in some ways, it's very adjacent to the Dark Tower series. Although those kind of points kind of really became drawn out in the sequel to this, which was 2002's Black House, or 2001. I can't remember. Yeah. But we'll get there in about 5 years. But yeah, so The Talisman. Let's all go around. Let's say who we are and how we first encountered The Talisman. My name is Randall Colburn, and I'm a senior writer at Consequence of Sound. And The Talisman was a book that I read pretty early in my King fandom. A friend of mine had it, and he told me it was great. And I wasn't that excited at first because I'm like, well, I just wanted pure, unfiltered King. I didn't want this other voice getting involved in it. So I didn't know who Peter Straub was, and I didn't care. But then I started reading it, and it really hooked me in. It has a 12... I always liked especially when I was younger, I always liked King's books that had child protagonists, and I also loved long books when I was a kid. I think maybe it just made me feel smart, but I loved the epic nature of this book, and also because I hadn't encountered it in a film, I hadn't seen it in any way, shape, or form, so I just read the book. But who is to my left, and how did you first encounter The Talisman?
This is Mel Castle, constant loser and animal hospital worker. I, very much like you, Randall, knew about it throughout my King years, but didn't want to read it because I was like, well, who's this guy?
Who's this
other guy? And I think I also assumed, because I knew later on who Peter Straub was, that it was unadulterated horror. Like, I thought it was a long horror novel. I didn't know anything about it being fantasy. So I kind of just let it be. Didn't read it until this past week or so.
Wow. And where'd you get your copy?
Myopic Books. So it's a first edition hardcover, but it looks exactly like Randall's.
Yeah,
paperback.
I have the paperback that is the orange and red edition. Let me see which guy it is. Berkeley Books. What year? 1985 edition. So boom. And who's sitting across from me?
This is Mackenzie Morgan Gerber.
Ah, the bad boy.
And the bad boy of the group today. I first came across The Talisman very recently because I'd never read it before, and I don't think I'd even really heard of it.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know it really existed, or at least that he co-wrote it with Straub. I knew that it was out there. Whenever I heard anything about Straub, I was always thinking of Black House. So
sure.
I didn't know this was connected to that in any way.
Oh, you didn't know this was connected to Black House?
No, I didn't know
Interesting.
until recently. And then I finished Eyes of the Dragon. Was that what we were?
Yeah, that was the last book.
I finished Eyes of the Dragon early, and I was looking for the copy that you guys have because I really liked that cover. And I was like, oh, I want a vintage version. And Justin was like, well, while you're looking for that, I'll give you my version, which is the weird baseball home plate.
Yeah,
that is
what
weird.
Is that?
I think it's supposed to be inside the talisman, like because this is kind of like the crystal-esque.
Sure.
But then they say it's a crystal ball, so I'm like, what the hell
Maybe
is
it's
going
the
on?
hotel.
Maybe it's supposed to be the Black Hotel.
Ah.
Or the Alhambra.
What
weird,
edition
though.
is
It's
that?
not a good cover.
It is the Pocketbooks edition.
Pocketbooks.
I can't. Let's see. Maybe. We'll find out the year at some point here.
Well,
2012.
Well, it looks
So,
bizarre.
Ain't that great? It's like a cloudy, weird blue version. It's not very good.
Yeah, for me personally, I've always associated this orange and red cover with and black with the Talisman. That's literally the only cover I've ever seen for it, so that's actually quite surprising.
Well, I did see there's a new version coming out, but it was coming out sometime at the end of April, and obviously we had read this before then. It's just Jack on the beach, I'm not sure which coast, holding the Talisman up, and there's this light beaming from it, and it's a really cool cover.
Oh, nice. I was going to say, it sounds pretty
Because
stupid.
our cover has this like, cracking window or cracking barrier between worlds, and it looks very scary, which is another reason I thought this was a horror novel.
Yeah.
It's got this black and then orange and red light leaking through. Yeah.
And to that point, I also thought it was just a straight up horror novel. I didn't realize that it was going to be more fantasy-esque, I guess. Because someone kept telling me, I kept saying that, Silver Bullet was the only time, or Silver Bullet, Cycle of the Werewolf was the only werewolf Stephen King story. I thought that was weird. And then someone was like, well, no, werewolves come back.
Oh, yeah. They come back in a big way.
But, so I just thought this was straight up a werewolf book for a while.
And who is this disembodied voice joining us from the great state of Texas?
This is Dan Wolf Caffrey, and
Wolf.
I'm a senior writer with Consequence of Sound and a constant loser as well. It's funny because about 6 years ago, my wife was going to be gone for about 3 months directing a show in Virginia. And I was like, I'm going to catch up on all the Stephen King books I hadn't read. And I think there were 14 at that point that I would have to have read to have read his whole canon. And she made me a bet that I couldn't read those in that 3-month period. And the first one was The Talisman. I think I'd read everything up until that point. So I just had never really heard about it as a kid. And I read it back then. This was probably, I want to say, like 2013 or so. And we'll get into what I think of the book soon. But the edition I have is, I keep trying to find the first edition for all the Losers Club books, but I could not find one at all anywhere here. So it's just like it's a first edition from the library, but it has that, what's that called when they take off the cover and they put this weird like turtleback thing on it? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, it's like, anyway, so it doesn't have a dust jacket, it doesn't have any cool stuff on it, but it is a first edition, I think, from the pages. And I had actually, the only thing I'd really heard about the Talisman when I was younger before I read it was that there were wolves in it, that the werewolves were used in a cool way. And I do think it actually fulfills that promise. But yeah, so this was one of the later King books in life for me, and I didn't really know much about it until I cracked it open as an adult. So it sounds like none of us read. Well, you, Randall, I guess.
I did,
right?
yeah.
But for the most part, none of us really read it as kids.
Yeah, and like kind of the funny thing is what I really responded to in it when I was young, because I always liked the really violent books, and because I was a freako, but I was shocked at how violent this book gets, because it does start with the kind of sense that it's more of a fantasy kind of thing. And it is, definitely. But, man, this book gets kind of brutal as it goes on.
Back when I was on page 250, totally. I was like, they should make it as a children's film. And Randall was like, you just wait.
Yeah, I was like, it kind of gets pretty serious.
Yeah, it's wild. Although, we'll talk about it later, but the thing is, like, I still think that if you just tone the violence down, it could still work.
I think it could be one of those great dark children's films,
Yeah.
like Watership Down. Or
I have a real, absolutely. I have a hot take on that too.
It doesn't need to be that violent, but I kind of like that it is.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about the history of it a little bit.
Yes. Don't you see? Don't you see how clear it all is? Not only can you see the future, I can change it. You can change it, exactly.
So this was the first collaborative book between Peter Straub and Stephen King, and it started just because they were buddies. And Peter Straub did an interview with Tenebrae. I think I'm saying that right. That's like an old magazine. This is an old interview, but he kind of breaks down how it all came together, and it's fun because it just sounds like it was really born out of the desire to work together, and like they were just pals.
Well, we know for real though that was born out of the Pagemaster.
Right. Well, we knew they were pals because of Eyes of the Dragon, right? Their friendship must have been pretty strong even then.
Wait, how was Straub involved with Eyes of the Dragon?
He dedicates it to Peter Straub's son and his daughter, and like their characters in the book.
That. Interesting. Well, then, wait, what then?
Peter Straub also has that book Floating Dragon.
Yeah,
that's it's a horror book, but it has a lot of dragon imagery, and so I don't know if that's an official tie to it or anything like that. But yeah, he seems to operate a lot more in the realm of fantasy horror than King had, at least up until this point, I think.
Yeah, and so Straub said in this interview, he goes, I think Steve raised this possibility the first night he and Tabby came to our house on Hillfield Avenue in London. Our wives had gone to bed, and we were sitting up, gabbing away like maniacs and drinking an enormous quantity of beer. We ought to write a book together, he said, or something similar, and right away we tried to work out when we could do that. It turned out that previous commitments meant that we couldn't begin for 4 years. We made a date to work. Yeah, we made a date to work together 4 years hence, and eventually went to bed. Over the intervening years, we now and then talked about what we could do. When the time drew near, this is a fun little story. My wife and I went to Portland, Maine to stay with the Kings for something like 3 or 4 days so that he and I could expand our vague ideas into an actual story, or at least the outline of a story. All we had then was the point of a situation from a story Steve had begun in college and then abandoned, that of a boy who must find some sacred object that will save his dying mother's life. Most of the rest emerged in the course of a series of, I think, 20-mile car journeys from the King house to a shopping mall in Portland. We had to keep driving back and forth because Steve kept forgetting to bring something or other he needed in order to make the right purchase. Then he found that he'd brought the wrong thing and had to try again. We went back and forth 3 times, I believe, so we spent hours in the car. These hours were very useful. We managed to work out most of the essential components of the story. So, and then they talk about the actual process of writing. And so by that point, it says he was living in Westport, Connecticut, Peter Straub was. And King came down there and stayed for, he says, 4 days, during which we wrote the first 15 or 20 pages, taking turns at my word processor. Then he went back to Maine, and I spent 10 days writing up a 70-page single-spaced outline based on everything we had discussed. After that, he continued from where we had left off, transmitted his pages to me, and and I picked up from his last sentence. We went on like this for about a year and a half, each of us firing off 100-page, 150-page segments at intervals of a month or so. When we were nearing the end, my wife and I went back to Maine, and Steve and I wrote the last 50 or so pages at his house, taking turns sitting down before his machine. Not long after submission, our editor joined us at Steve's place, and we went through the book, making whatever cuts seemed necessary. So, and then he actually talks a lot about how they each had a bit of music that was a huge inspiration for them. And there was a jazz record by Michel Legrand called After the Rain, which featured 2 of my favorite saxophonists, Phil Woods and Zoot Sims, who are mentioned in the final pages, I believe, in the car. So then he goes, I played this record whenever it was my turn to sit in the chair and write. When it was Steve's turn, he put on a record called Electric Avenue by Eddie Grant. He loved a certain moment when something in the background made a sound exactly like a diving board going boing after someone has just bounced off it. At one point, I was typing away and Phil Woods and Zoot Sims were playing simultaneously, sort of winding their sounds around each other. And Steve said, hey, Peter, they're like you and me.
Aww.
Isn't that sweet?
There's 2 incredible things about this story. One is that these friends made a commitment 4 years in the future and stuck to it, which is insane to me and so cool. And like, I hope I can do that with someone someday. And the other thing is that they switched off writing and I can't tell. I can't tell who's who when they're writing.
Well, that's funny that you say that, because in another interview with a Swedish publication that I can't pronounce the name of.
Try.
Give it a shot.
Let's see here. Folgeslaggarna.
Probably wrong.
I guarantee it's wrong. Do you have a shot? Do you have an idea?
No, I have Swedish ancestry, but that means nothing.
I'm assuming it's Swedish too. I might even be wrong.
Looks like Norse.
Yeah, it might be Norse. But yeah, it's with this magazine. And the funny thing is, the interviewer seems to know more about the book than Peter does. Because he's like, when you wrote The Talisman, you imitated each other's writing styles, so you came up with a collaborative voice. King once said that you could have published the book under the name Chauncey Boogerheart to stop readers from making a guessing game out of who wrote what in the book. Do you feel that this voice, Chauncey Boogerheart, if you want, is present in Black House? And he was talking about Black House. But then Peter says that, let me see here. All Peter said was, this time around, Chauncey Boogerheart's voice is considerably more elevated, riper, plummier than heretofore. Nobody talks like that. Come on.
Peter Straub does.
Yeah, apparently. So, it seemed like that their writing process was really smooth, really collaborative, very interesting.
That's just crazy to me. Like, if you had asked me to guess how they wrote the book, I would say not that. I would say like one probably wrote and one edited, and like they got it to a place where it sounded all the same and it was a really drawn out process, but it sounds like they really were keyed into each other and could just access this common voice.
That's really interesting.
It's really crazy because I mean there's certain parts where I'm like, oh, this is definitely King, but that's few and far between, and for the most part it really seems consistent, and I don't know how they did that.
Right.
Yeah.
The heretofore thing that you just said is interesting when you were like, nobody talks like that, because I feel like it reads like King with a somewhat expanded vocabulary and a little bit more grandiose style.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe that's what Straub brings to the table. I don't know, but
Absolutely.
it's cool.
But yeah, and then so the book, people had very high hopes for it because Straub was a big name back then too, and obviously King was a huge name. So the marketing push for it, which had hundreds of thousands of dollars behind it, was pushing the book as the greatest horror novel ever written, because it's
Horror?
these, or maybe not horror, but it was like something along those lines. Wait, let me see if I have it up here. It's
I mean, it does get pretty grotesque, but I wouldn't.
It does.
I wouldn't. It's more.
yeah, it says horror.
Yeah,
I mean,
I guess they had to because it's Straub and King.
Yeah.
but yeah, and then the popular and critical reception was mixed. People magazine actually called it one of the worst books of the year, but then a lot of others actually really praised it. And, you know, it obviously still sold really well. It sold around 880,287 copies in 1984. And the original hardbound edition spent 12 weeks as #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, total of 23 weeks on the list. So, yeah, it was a very successful book, obviously. And then but the thing was, yeah, it's Steven Spielberg, and we're going to talk about this a lot more later, but Steven Spielberg scooped up the book straight for. He didn't even buy the rights. He just bought the book. And he's owned that since then. And we'll talk about the many tries and fails at trying to adapt it to the screen and the possibility of one actually coming up soon. So, and yeah, so I think that's a good primer for leading into this. But before we move on, we like to, as we always do, read a synopsis of the book. Mel, do you want to read the one from
Sure.
our edition?
I just also want to note that on the back inner flap of the book jacket, there's a picture of King and Straub looking very buddy-buddy.
Yes.
It's
And
really cute.
King's got a great cocaine beard there.
King has his arm around Straub's waist, and Straub has his arm around King's shoulders, and they are just talking the industry.
It doesn't look staged at all.
No, it actually does.
I
think
know,
it's
I'm
cute.
kidding.
Okay. So the first edition book jacket opens with a quote from the book. You got a job, Traveling Jack, Speedy told him. A job that ain't going to let you go, and that's the Lord's truth. I wish it was different. Jack Sawyer, 12 years old, is about to begin a most fantastic journey, an exalting, terrifying quest for the Talisman, for only the Talisman can save Jack's dying mother and defeat the enemy who is out to destroy them both. But to reach his goal, Jack must make his way not only across the breadth of the United States, but through the wondrous and menacing territories as well. The territories lie as firmly in the imagination as Atlantis or Oz. They are as real as every reader's own vision of that parallel world evoked in the mind's mysterious eye. In the territories, Jack finds a world little removed from the Earth's own dark ages. Though the air is so sweet and clear a man can smell a radish being pulled from the ground a mile away, a life can be snuffed out instantly in the continuing struggle between good and evil. And Jack discovers twinners, reflections of the people he knows on Earth, most notably the dying Queen Laura, the twinner of Jack's own imperiled mother. But only a few can flip from one world to the other. Jack's late father could, the malevolent Morgan Sloat can, and so will Jack himself. As Jack makes his way westward toward the redemptive Talisman, a dual array of heart-stopping encounters challenges him at every step. From a terrifying period when he's held captive in an Indiana home for wayward boys that is run by a sadistic religious fanatic, to sudden and murderous attacks by enemies of Queen Laura in the territories. Stephen King and Peter Straub have combined their talents to create an unforgettable epic of fantasy, adventure, and resounding triumph. So you don't even have to read the book.
Yeah, you're done. And now you're done. Mine's much shorter and better in that sense. It says, why had 12-year-old Jack Sawyer's mother frantically moved the two of them from Rodeo Drive to a New York City apartment to the Alhambra, a fading ocean resort and shuttered amusement park in New Hampshire? Who or what is she running from? She is dying, and even young Jack knows she can't outrun death. But only he can save her, for he has been chosen to search for a prize across an epic landscape of dangers and lies, a realm of innocence and monsters where everything Jack loves is on the line.
Yeah.
That's better.
Mine's even shorter, and this is from the Berkeley paperback, but you are about to take a journey, ...
That's it.
A terrifying trip across a nightmare America filled with monsters beyond anything ever imagined before, ... A a journey into the dark heart of horror. ... The Talisman.
Wow. If you read that and you knew nothing about the book and then you started reading the book, you'd be like, what the fuck?
Well, I think that was like maybe one of the reasons that it wasn't one of like the first King books I picked. I mean, it was an early one because my friend had it, but when I saw it at the library, I was never one to grab it because that description was so vague, and I always liked it having a little bit more. But I guess like it does though convey what I think. We can discuss this, but what I think sort of the real hook of this is that it's kind of a journey. It's like a fetch quest.
Sure.
Dan,
you don't have a synopsis, right? Because you don't have a dust jacket.
No, I've just got an ugly beige turtleback that has a lot of stains on it because I think it's very old. But yeah, so nothing. Although I don't know that summary you read, Mel, was exhausting. Yeah, which kind of sums up my feelings on the book a little bit too. But anyway,
we'll get there. Okay. But yeah, I think that there's very much a Lord of the Rings kind of quality to this. There is the idea of one object to rule them all kind of thing, and a very clear evil villain who doesn't have a lot of shades of gray to him, and a young hero who is on this quest and has to travel by foot, across the world basically to get there.
Quest he wishes he didn't have to go on.
It's true.
He's kind of resentful of it.
Yeah, and so
I've got some Hobbit takes on this. I got a little section.
You got Hobbit takes?
Yeah.
Well, do you want to talk about them now? Because
I
think that actually is a good way into discussing the hook of this. Is that there is definitely very much a Lord of the Rings kind of vibe.
So much so that it's mentioned several times
yes,
in the book.
Yes, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just it's mentioned a few times. Like they talk about like Ents when they talk about the trees moving and all that stuff. They talk about Ents and Entwives. Mentions page 246. He talks about the little town looked like hobbits, and I mean like direct references.
Yeah,
to it,
They go see the movie. They go see the animated Lord of the Rings,
and they see the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings and Wizards, which is crazy. Let's see, chapter. Well, I don't have that in there, but Jack bellows out orders in the name of his mother, the queen, later on in the book. Yeah. And it's like super reminiscent to Samwise the Strong, like when he starts getting kind of like powerful all of a sudden and they're like cowering and, he's like channeling his power over in the territories. And, there's something in the chapter 33, Richard in the Dark. I'll get back to that. I had to like look it up, but yeah, there's just a lot of references and just the journey itself. And then especially when he meets up with Richard, and it's like him and Samwise on the journey. He's has to like carry him along the way. Yeah, it's flip flopped a little bit, but it's very, very much like definitely feels like that.
And I think also, like, just kind of tying it in, both Lord of the Rings, but also a lot of when King writes about children, there's very much a coming-of-age sort of narrative here as well. There's no love story, as there often is in a coming-of-age story, but there is the sense of deepening friendships. Friendship is clearly a running theme throughout this book, and the people he meets along the way, et cetera, exposing himself to new worlds, broadening his horizons, things of that nature. But yeah, there's definitely... I guess this is also a good time to just sort of discuss the tone, the general tone, because we start out and there's very much we get the magical character of Speedy, who is, this all-knowing sort of mysterious figure who's there to lead, usher him off on his journey. And there's something kind of sweet and simple about it. And then Morgan kind of resonates as a... almost cartoony kind of villain early on, and we know that Jack's dad is dead, and we have all the kind of classic things to get us off on our foot, but then things start to get a bit horrific as we go on.
Yeah, I would say for me it started kind of taking more of a serious turn when he tells the story about when he had met Speedy before, when he kind of saves him from being abducted.
Oh yeah.
And the abduction description is pretty adult, and you're like, oh, this is like heavy.
Yeah, and I think
I knew it was gonna. I kind of felt like it was gonna start heading a little bit more into heavy territory.
I mean, I guess this is a good question. Like, do you guys think this is more of a fantasy book or a horror book?
I think fantasy.
Yeah.
Even though there are werewolves in it, it's much more of a fantasy-esque take on werewolves.
Right.
They're talking.
Yeah.
I think it's tough to make something a horror book if you're spending so much time world building a medieval setting.
Yes.
Yes. Well, it has that kind of gobbledygook quality that fantasy can take on sometimes, where it's just listing exposition and rules and creatures and there's just so much setup for it, that I mean, I think there are scary scenes for sure, especially in the Sunlight Gardener home, but I would call it dark fantasy maybe, if anything. Yeah, I don't think it's full-on horror. But it's interesting because Black House, the sequel, I think is a full-on horror novel because it mostly takes place in this world and it involves a serial killer and everything.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
I
there's...
think
sorry.
Dark fantasy is like a really good word for what King likes to do and is far more literal in this book, in that he just loves having these kind of cliched settings and archetypes of characters that are very Lord of the Rings, like you were saying, but he also loves to be like, but here's what real life is like, and they aren't mutually exclusive. You can go into this fantasy world and you can also encounter pedophiles on the road.
Yeah.
And like that's a key message that he always tries to put in his coming of age books, I feel like.
Yeah. And like, I mean, the whole sequence at Oatley Tap to me is one of my favorites in the whole book.
Oh, yeah.
Just because I really respond to sort of the, I don't know, the horror of just, working for somebody like Smokey there. And then, but also you've got this monster,
Who's
like
also there.
like
He's a
Elroy.
literal monster.
Yeah, like, and I guess that's the other thing that I think kind of veers it into dark fantasy, which is that the monsters here very much take the form of animals that have become human, or become sentient in become these mutant kind of things. Like they're not, except for maybe Ruel, who we'll talk about later. Like I feel like a lot of the monsters here are like just large alligators or things, or large goats that have like mutated with humans and stuff like that, which is to me very freaky, but something that we don't see in King a lot. I don't think. I feel like
it's very reminiscent of like the Cantoy, like a precursor to.
Oh, yeah.
Because they even mention when they try to abduct him in our world, that we're living in the world of the Talisman, y'all. If you didn't know. They mention like that they're kind of wearing skin.
Yeah.
But there's something underneath.
I got that vibe
and I
too.
was like, oh, this is kind of interesting because obviously they don't show up till much later in the Dark Tower series. But
and also too, there's that mention in the Blasted Lands of the guy with the crocodile tail, and that reminded me of the Skin Man from The Wind Through the Keyhole.
You're right, Dan.
And yeah, the edition I read was older, so yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't think he was plotting that out at that point, but yeah, I think he definitely links all the creatures and all the different traits of the world as he goes on later, and he realized the Dark Tower is kind of this big connecting beacon for everything he did. Because didn't he go back and tweak some of the Talisman to be better connected to the Dark Tower later?
If he did, I don't think I don't know about it, and I didn't see it in my research, but they did. It is sort of described that Black House, they called it a quote unquote soft recon or like retcon to make the territories more linked to Midworld or all world.
And when we get to King's Dominion, I've got a lot of King's Dominion and Dark Tower-esque stuff in there too.
Yeah, and especially just in the general sense that even in this world, even though King maybe hadn't completely figured out the Dark Tower universe yet, he was still obsessed with that idea that there are many, many worlds.
Yeah, absolutely totally obsessed.
Yeah, which is really, I think it's very, very interesting.
And also just the interconnectedness that we're not conscious of, like consequences of disrupting things in one world echoing to the next is a big part of the struggle here.
I really like that too.
Yeah. And
also,
so
it's a Jesus parable.
I know. It's funny that you say that. There's a line that on page 526, let me see if I can get the exact context here, but the line is, guys like Jason have a way of coming back, don't they? Or something like that.
It's like, oh, there was another guy whose name started with a J. Doesn't it literally say that?
Yeah, it might. Right here it says, although he felt like Jack, he was coming more and more to also feel like the other one, but he died. This is Morgan talking, I believe. Oh wait, no, this is Jack. Sorry. I'm just going to read this
talking
section.
about Jason?
Yeah, wait, hold on. Let me see here. It was an hour or better before Jack could manage a coherent run of conversation with the old man. This is Anders in the train station in the Blasted Lands. They would begin talking, and then Anders, who is a livery man by trade, would go off on another of his, "Oh, Jason, my Jason, how great thou art," jags. And Jack would have to quiet him down as quickly as he could, certainly before the feet kissing started again. Jack liked the old man, however, and sympathized. In order to sympathize, all he had to do was imagine how he would feel if Jesus or Buddha turned up at the local car wash or in the school lunch line. And he had to acknowledge one other clear and present fact. There was a part of him which was not entirely surprised by Anders' attitude. Although he felt like Jack, he was coming more and more to also feel like the other one. But he died. That was true, undeniably true. Jason had died, and Morgan of Oris had probably had something to do with his death. But guys like Jason had a way of coming back, didn't they? And I guess that to me was a very almost like heavy-handed moment of, oh, so we are doing kind of a Jesus kind of thing here. And so, but how do you guys respond to that? Do you like the idea that Jack is more than just a mere boy, that he is sort of this, chosen spiritual being by the Talisman?
It didn't really bother me, and they never really pushed it over the edge. I mean, there were moments where he would be over there and someone would just kind of be in awe of his beauty. They kept mentioning that he had this kind of like raw power that would like surface every once in a while. So I was like, I didn't really know what the hell they were trying to do with it originally.
I really thought
I was like, what's going on?
The fact that he's single-natured is the word that they use. I thought that was very cool. Like his twinners have all died.
Right.
There's no other Jack in any of the universes. I wish it had gone a little bit more into that. Like, was that predestined, or is it just like this crazy rare occurrence that makes him able to get the talisman? Like, how destined is it, and how like, oh my God, it's 1 in a million and he's here? Is it?
I didn't get that. What I got from that was that his twinner in that world was dead, but not necessarily all of his twinners.
I think he explicitly says that he doesn't have a twinner in any of the other worlds.
Because I thought,
I'm not sure.
And maybe you guys know, and maybe this is Black House territory, spoilerific, but I thought someone had told me that he was kind of supposed to be Jake.
See, I don't know that.
Okay, well, maybe I'm wrong.
I think we'll mostly try to. I haven't read Black House in so many years that we'll probably try to avoid. And I mean, I doubt we'll be able to touch on it too much. And Black House is such a different book, which is just kind of wild.
There's a Jake in Black House, or do you mean Jake in the Dark Tower?
Or that there's a mention that he could be the twinner of Jake in that realm.
Yeah,
but that's also weird because this book kind of clearly. Well, we'll get to it when we get to King's Dominion, but yeah, I feel like this kind of clearly takes place in the Dark Tower universe.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, I think King didn't really have a strong sense of what the Dark Tower universe was when he wrote this, and I feel like this is probably what writing the territories was probably what helped him flesh out,
absolutely,
Midworld and everything, which is a neat idea.
Yeah.
So
another theme is definitely like King's dissatisfaction with the way this world is going, and like presenting a cleaner, like the air is actually cleaner. There's all of the things that are presented as bad in the territories are like nuclear waste, things that have been corrupted by our world. It reads as very like what is the word I'm looking for? I guess maybe nostalgic for like a better time, and kind of conservative in that like you're like, oh, if only we could go back and be farmers and like purify the air.
Morgan is kind of the one corrupting the world, because like he's trying to bring over the influence of capitalism, exactly, and like like in basically big business and the ideas of that. Over to the territories,
but also industrialism. It's about like technology.
Yep.
Like they can't have that.
Right.
It's just going to ruin them.
Yeah, which is interesting. What do you guys think about just in general Morgan as a villain?
I hate him. I don't mean hate him in a good way where I love to hate him. I just think he's so one note and just. I mean, I don't know. When you hear about his past, I'm actually more interested in general in the parts of the book that take place in our world. And when you hear about his history of Jack's dad, he does remind me of a very specific type of entitled guy who wants all this stuff. But I think that nuance kind of goes away to a certain point. Like you sort of see how his insecurity bred villainy. But then at a certain point, he's just this very cartoonish villain, I think, who just hates everything and wants to destroy everything. And he just becomes so nonspecific and not much of a menacing force, at least for me. I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
Well, it's interesting because I struggle with Morgan, but I love Osmond / Gardner as a villain. But there's something so cartoony about him, which I kind of love to a degree, because when it comes to the right hand man, kind of villain, I kind of like when they're almost, the more pure evil, which happens, I think, a lot
of the
time. Yeah. And I really like that.
That happens in Nosferatu, which Stephen King's son wrote. Like the second banana guy is actually my favorite villain. The guy who's knocking out people with laughing gas from the dentist.
I forgot about that character.
And I agree. I think some like Gardner, because he's over the top, but he's at least specific, and he latches on to an archetype that goes beyond just general evil, like you were saying before. Like Gardner, I mean, he very much is the the manic preacher kind of thing, but I think there's just more room within that archetype to play a little bit than just the domineering older dude who wants to destroy everything.
Yeah, and I guess I like the idea to just speaking about Gardner a little bit, and we're not going to get into the character stuff, but I think just in terms of the themes in the story is that there are certain places within our world that are inherently corrupted because like the Sunlight Gardner home, when he flips over to the territories there, it's like this hell landscape with
hellish slave camp.
Yeah, it's like a slave camp, and there's fire and brimstone and everything. And I kind of love that. And I feel like that was sort of a running theme throughout it too, is that there are certain areas that are just inherently corrupted. And it's funny because the town where that takes place, whether or not he made it up or not, Cayuga, Illinois, or Indiana, that's right by my wife's parents' house is a town called Cayuga. I don't know if
Explains a lot.
I know. I don't know if it's like the exact same, but or if he just made it up and it turns out that there really is a town called that. But it's like, but the thing is, it fits the area. I'll say that much.
Oh, really? Jeez.
But any other sort of themes that you think maybe stood out to you in this book that maybe we haven't touched on
I
yet?
think you touched on most of the ones that stood out to me.
Yeah.
Well, it is strange for this book because I feel like even with some of the King novels we haven't liked as much, there's at least some kind of big picture takeaway theme. Salem's Lot, which is one of his best books. It's this metaphor for suburbia, or not suburbia, but for small town America. The Stand definitely has a really concrete moral message. But I feel like with the Talisman, I don't know if they were trying to say much, and I don't think that's a problem necessarily.
Sure.
But I really do think I do think the focus and the point of this book is just this establishing parallel universes, which he would come to time and time again. Like I feel like it's one of the first King books where we don't really have a strong message to take away. But did you guys feel that way too? Like there was as much to latch on to?
I think he tries to isolate what true goodness is, which again is kind of a commonality across King's work. The difference between actual Jesus / Jack and the fervor of the Sunlight home, where they say all the right things, they seem to be devoted, but it's actually this corrupt, evil version of faith. And and Morgan even trying to like justify his actions to himself, just the different guises of goodness and which one is the best, and it happens to be Jack. And it doesn't have much rules other than caring for people other than yourself, fulfilling your responsibilities, letting go of power when it is presented to you. That's kind of like the underlying moral message I take.
Yeah.
Or just the whole angle with trying to save his mother from cancer. I don't know. I mean, it's not really like a theme, but I think it's really all it ends up being towards the end. And I don't know. I have thoughts on that too.
That's the sort of like the micro versus macro consequences. Like that one good act bounces across all of existence, that's a really weird.
No. I see what you're saying. It's like there's this one act of goodness, and it's almost, and it is a resurrection of sorts that
it means a lot, even though it's an individual act.
Exactly. Yeah, and it has that very Christian quality to it.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's very much this whole idea of about like this one central goodness that has the power to heal. And the thing is, I don't know if I really buy Jack as that, because I think it's really hard to write sort of a paragon of virtue and goodness. But if there's one thing that I think makes Jack really compelling, it's the perseverance,
Yeah.
in the sense that he's how hard his journey is. And I mean, that's something that I think King and Straub do really well, is show just how fucking hard this is, which is interesting and sometimes exhausting, very exhausting. So on that note, why don't we pivot over to structure and format and the ways in which this book is told by these authors.
Look at me. Look at me, teacher.
There's very much a third person vibe. Like, we're definitely have a distance from the characters. And I think even, I could be wrong, but on page 607, Yes. This is a really bizarre moment in page 607 that really stood out to me.
Is it the first person?
Yeah, it's like when the authorial voice takes on a first person note. They say, then Richard fell on his knees with his hair in his tired face, and Jack got down there with him. And I can bear to tell you no more, only that they comforted each other as well as they could. And as you probably know from your own bitter experience, that is never quite good enough. And that's a lovely little sentiment, but it is so jarring in that moment.
It's the one instance.
Yeah, it pulls you out of it a bit.
Well, I just don't know why there necessarily. Like, there's all kinds of intimate moments that happen between Jack and Wolf and Jack and Richard and various characters. So why here do the authors take a step back and not only acknowledge that there is a storyteller here, but that we are also reading it and we can relate or whatever?
I would not even be surprised if there were more of those and they were like, actually, let's cut these out, and they just forgot one.
That one?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think that's more likely. It's such a dense book.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I
I don't know,
say,
maybe they did miss it.
On page 31, and I was going back looking at my notes when I noticed this, Speedy is talking to Jack, and he says, man like me, he hear all kinds of stories about two-headed parrots, men that fly with their own wings, men who turn into wolves, stories about queens, sick queens, and that's like too specific to what Jack encounters on his journey. Like, does he already... And then I thought maybe this prophecy is contained in the Book of Good Farming because they kind of like mention all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Or maybe like Speedy just literally already knows what's going to happen. But it's weird.
I get the feeling that Speedy does.
Well, yeah, like at the end, Speedy just says stuff like, everybody's gone. If you just want to rest on the beach, no one will bother you. Like go here, walk to this tree, switch over, go to this gas station, and somebody will be there. And it has the feel of like the Bible, like the whole, like when you read the Bible and there's very much the concept that the end has already been foretold, you know, that this, like, maybe this was all written before and Jack is Christ and we already know the good guy's going to win. Speedy very much conveys that.
And they say in that part where the fish kind of rise up to help him, I think one of the villains is like, just like the Book of Good Farming says, like the creatures from the deep like came and helped him.
I forgot about that. That's really interesting. There's a lot of interesting... I feel like for the most part, there's very much a... we stick with Jack, we're in Jack's head, and then we have these interludes where we go into Morgan's life.
Head, yeah.
And how did you guys respond to those sections? Did you like getting Morgan's perspective?
No, like Dan said, I feel like we don't get enough of his motivations. We only get him in the present moment being angry and wanting to do things about Jack. And I was interested when they went back into his past a little bit and we learned about how he became this kind of cowardly henchman who's scheming to take over everything type. So I wish we got more of that, but it's mostly just him being like infuriated and trying to get to Jack.
Yeah.
I didn't love those sections. I thought I was interested in them because I thought I was going to flesh that character out more, and it did to an extent, but it didn't give you enough, and I kind of felt like I kept pressing on the brakes whenever we got to that point because I was kind of just like, all right, let's just go with Jack. Let's just keep going because we're not discovering enough about this character to keep stopping and go back to him. And he wasn't it was like trying to build him as a terrifying character, I think, and it just didn't work. Yeah. Like you said, I Sunlight Gardener's like way more the villain in my opinion than he is.
Yeah, I mean, Morgan, whenever we go back to those sections where it all is in, it follows his perspective, it is such an exposition dump. It's like it's really just diving into the past and everything, which is information that we need, I guess, to a degree, but at the same time there's really no forward momentum in those chapters, which is, I think, what Dan?
What did you guys think about, just because we're talking about structure and these kind of diversions with all the Sloat in this world chapters, and this was the thing that happened in Eyes of the Dragon also. I feel like King sort of was almost hesitant getting started. Like even in the beginning of the novel, it's like he jumps around in time a lot, talking about Jack traveling, and then he mentions Speedy before Jack has actually met Speedy, and I feel like it's sort of this engine that takes forever to start up. And Eyes of the Dragon does that too a little bit. Just it's like they take forever just to get on this linear kind of path, and then those Sloat diversions, I think, even add to that a little bit more. Just the clunkiness of it. Was that an issue for you guys, like structurally speaking?
Absolutely, I think that. And, Straub even said this in an interview I was reading, that he thinks the Talisman's too damn long. And I think that for me, there is sort of, I mean, and maybe it's because they were passing chapters back and forth to each other, and they kind of each wanted to contribute
I can
to
see
certain
this happening.
sections.
Yeah.
Because like certain sections, man, like just take so long to move. And like I was just finishing it up this past week, and man, just like even that car ride. Back
At the
to
very end.
at the
Yeah.
very end just goes on forever.
That was really that reminded me a lot of the ending of The Stand when they had like the long trip home, and you're like, oh, the book's not done yet. They've got this whole other story to tell. But yeah, the beginning is very strange. I remember when I was reading it, I was like, wow, I really have to read this, because like 1 second Jack would be like seeing something that wasn't there, and then he would be like, oh, but that wasn't really there, and then continue, and you're like, wait, what? Like if I had missed that,
it took me a while to get the geography straight.
Yep.
Because you're like, okay, you moved here from Manhattan to where you moved to from California, and it was a little strange that way too.
Yeah.
I will say I really liked coming in media res a little bit, where we don't know that the territories have always been a part of Jack's life.
Yes.
But we join him as they become more and more important, and we have to go back and realize what they are. Like, that is cool to me.
Yeah. Well, I also I'll say that in terms of setting a tone, I guess, at the beginning, I really loved the Alhambra as this desolate place.
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea that it was off season, there was barely anybody around, and the hotel clerk was not to be trusted,
To me, it was kind of like the twinner of the Outlook, of the Overlook.
Yeah.
Like it was almost like, I was like, yes, it was desolate and lone, but I never felt like it was like a bad thing. I just felt like it was like, I don't know, like, or that, especially at the end, I felt like the Alhambra was kind of like the twinner of the Black Hotel.
Sure.
On the opposite shore of this other hotel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so to me, it was always kind of felt like a fortress of solitude almost, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, even at the end, just like the fact that it had been completely empty and
it's
she
cold.
was
It's
and
freezing
it's freezing
cold.
and she was just left alone in the hotel was like really chilling to me. So I think I like that as a beginning and an end point, but I do agree, I guess, just with Dan, in that the engine really takes a while to get going.
I like how
mean?
this book is
totally.
so long that the chapters have chapters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Each chapter is split into like 6 numbered sections.
Justin would keep asking me, what chapter are you on? And I'm like, I don't know. Because like,
You're like,
I
I'm
would
on
never
chapter
know.
2 of chapter 30.
Yeah, I'm like, I think I'm on 6, but I don't know what chapter of that chapter I'm on.
Yeah, and I think that I could see maybe a little bit of King influence, because King likes to get in other people's heads a lot. Like he likes to just divert off the main character and jump into someone else's head. I think I don't know, I can't speak to Straub style, but there was very little of that here. So when it did happen, it would be really surprising. Like that guy Buddy that he is in a car with, we suddenly just go into that guy's head for like one chapter. There's be those little moments every now and then where we would lose Jack as sort of our guidepost. And those were very jarring moments to me. Yeah. And then how about, I think this is a good time to also discuss the when Jack grabs the talisman for the first time and we revisit a bunch of people from along the way. What did you guys think about that section?
Oh, where we see the dude from Oatley Tap. Is he the one who shoves the knife into his nose? Wait, who does that?
Yeah.
I know. I thought his eyes explode.
Oh
or
no,
something.
That's right. The jukebox explodes in his eyes. Explode.
Oh, who is it then that shoves the knife up their nose? I can't. Was it someone who escaped from the? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I just thought that was pretty. It reminded me at the end of It, where Derry, along with Pennywise's destruction.
Whoa, hey.
Whoa. Wait,
It's
read the book
the
yet,
police guy who shoves the knife up his nose. The policeman.
The policeman. Yeah.
I did like the randomness of all that. I think too because we had been in Fantasyland for so long too.
Yeah.
I kind of like that they went back and just did this grisly kind of comeuppance for all these characters who had wronged Jack. So yeah, I actually dug that part. It was a nice breakup from the what was to me otherwise and a too long ending.
Yeah, man, that whole section of him getting into the hotel. We can talk. Well, no, I guess maybe we can talk about it now. Yeah. I'll just say that. Well, before moving on, I'll just say that. Yeah, I kind of, when I was a kid, especially, I love those. I think that's one thing that King does well is he he loves to show the impact of whatever the climax is on the world, like, you know, on Derry or on, you know, in the stand, like characters reacting far away to what's happening, or the various people reacting to, you know, what's going on with like them being sacrificed at the end, you know, like just getting all these different character perspectives to me is always a really cool part of King. So I kind of liked it. I think some of it was maybe a little cheesy. I love like when Smokey's eyes like explode, but doesn't his calculator starts like spelling out
Talisman,
which is just kind of absurd. And then it like the whole place like explodes, which makes me feel a little bad for his wife because she was really nice to Jack, and she blows up too.
Oh my god.
We
can talk about women in this book later.
Oh yeah, we'll get there.
I like that section just because I was interested in like how it was affecting everybody else that he had met along the way.
Yeah,
and it reminded me of something, and I'm going to think of it later, and I'm going to mention it. But I also felt like we don't need to. It kind of felt like, let's bookend every single thing in here.
Sure,
you know what I mean? Like I was like, I don't know if we need to ever go back to certain characters, but it was interesting.
You were talking about them getting their comeuppance, which was really interesting to me because the Talisman is such a force for good and healing, but then we get like these awful happenings, and at one point I think all these people die, and King even says like, and good riddance or something.
That was Ole, yeah.
Like, and it's like crazy. Like, wow, you can't really have your cake and eat it too here. Like, no redemption for anyone.
And if we're talking about like the whole how this is kind of like the Bible, I think it's probably like the rapture. Like everyone, like if you believed, if you were good, you escaped, or something good happened to you, or you started feeling good about the world or life. And then all the bad guys, they just ended up either like killing themselves or something terrible would happen to them.
Clear Jesus moment when that kid Donnie from the Sunlight Home is like, I do love him. I love him so much.
See, that was, I'll just, like, we'll probably touch on this more, but that was weird to me. Just like how much Jack is so beautiful and everyone worships him or hates him, you know, like depending on whether they're good or bad.
Like, if you hate beautiful people, Randall, then.
Well, no, I can't hate myself.
Strange. That is a
strange thing. No, I'll just.
One thing I will mention that annoyed me about the structure too is that sometimes the chapter titles would give away what was about to happen in the chapter. They'd be like, in which so and so comes back, and
that's weird because that's a very like specific type of thing to do. Like that's, you know, very like Brechtian, you know, like if you watch Lars von Trier's Dogville, you know, the opening title card of every sequence will tell you what's about to happen, which is what Brecht would do because he wanted you to not be swept up in the story. He wanted you to think about the consequences and the themes behind it all.
See, you went to Brecht. I went to the title of the episodes of Friends. It'd be like, you know, the one where Jack and Wolf go to the movies, you know?
That's a depressing episode. But I'll also just say that I guess this is I guess a time to bring this up, but if there's one thing that, man, just drives me nuts about King, and maybe this is a Straub thing too, but just like how much they get swept up in the minutia of a task. And it's so exhausting to me.
Or even the minutia of one leg of the journey where he's getting exhausted by a person he's with. It's so repetitive.
Yes.
He says the same thing different ways, like over the course of 100 pages. And you're like, I get it. It's annoying.
Yeah.
And he's tired.
And then, and then,
absolutely.
and just, you know, but then the part that I'm thinking of specifically that I had to start skimming over because I'm like, all right, I get it, was when they were on the raft getting up on the dock to get to the hotel, and just the whole process of getting to the ladder, tying rope to the raft, the raft itself, and then the fish, and then like
I think
Richard is passed out and trying to lug Richard onto the ladder so he can climb it. All of that, I was like, I don't need 6 pages of this. You are killing me.
I think that's a big King thing, and I can't speak to Straub, but King definitely does that all the time.
I know. Well, it reminds me of The Stand, like the whole. And I mind this a lot less because it's a process that was at least really interesting. But like Trash Can Man trying to get the nuke out of the base in Las Vegas, but King went into every aspect of what you would need to do as a solitary person.
Right, that's
doing
That's an
interesting thing, but at the same time, it's like it's still so exhausting. But here I'm just like, I do not need. Why can't you just like tighten this up by making the ladder go all the way down? Like, just make it a little easier. Not every leg of this needs to be so difficult.
I also think the repetition of that though is probably like the handing off to someone else.
Sure,
and they might not have realized they already explain
Yeah.
how to do this.
Or they're trying so hard to be consistent
Yeah.
that they just end up kind of
reiterate
yeah.
it a little bit, and then it just happens too often, and we notice it a little bit more.
Oh, it drives me
yeah,
nuts.
yeah.
That or just like Jack getting kicked in the balls and then 19 different descriptions of how much it hurts.
Well, you know
Feels
what?
like a
That's-
Until he
rusty
grabs
blade.
that talisman again, then he's okay.
Honestly, that's the only time that I feel like that's merited because
It does hurt.
you got to explain that correctly.
But yeah, I guess so it's kind of all over the place, but I would still say though that there is we touched on this earlier, but a remarkable consistency considering a voice and considering it was two writers, but there is definitely a very sort of sprawling, sloppy quality that maybe could have benefited from a stronger editor.
We have to note that it opens and closes with Mark Twain quotes.
Oh yeah.
And then just on a technical note, there's 4 larger parts. And they have like a different number of chapters, each of them, and then interludes.
And
with
interludes.
Sloat in this world.
Yes.
I do like the Mark Twain quotes, especially that final one, because I don't know if they were planning on it at the time, but it talks about stopping the story when at the end of boyhood and then possibly picking it up again later when they're adults, but now it's not the time for that. And that to me foreshadows Black House in a really nice way. Like I said, I don't know if they were planning on doing a sequel however many years later, but that did feel like a nice little ribbon to be tied around the whole thing. So I appreciate the Mark Twaininess of all that.
Yeah, I thought that final quote especially was really sweet. Although it's kind of funny that it's like, we're going to leave this be for now, but then then we get Black House, when he isn't, but that's when he is an adult. And yeah, that's interesting. But any other thoughts?
How much do you think they were going for a Huckleberry Finn Mark Twain thing? I mean, you have you have Speedy, who could obviously be a stand-in for Jim. I don't know. Do you think there are more specific connections to Tom Sawyer and Mark Twain that we're not seeing beyond the really obvious stuff? Like, how much of a direct correspondence do you think there is between those two works?
I wouldn't be surprised if there was stuff that we just don't remember because it's been a while since I've read Huck Finn.
Yeah, same.
But the vibe I remember most from reading Huck Finn is the whole like he has nothing on his back, kind of. He has to go out on this journey on the raft, and it's very much the technicalities of being a boy alone on this long journey. I guess that corresponds.
And maybe, and I guess just like the idea of the bond that develops between people when they travel. And I have a lot of thoughts about that with Wolf and Jack, which we'll get to. But I think that is actually executed much better with him and Richard, because was already a fractured friendship. And so to watch the way that being on the road and traveling together sort of brings them back together as friends to me was fairly powerful. But yeah, I almost wish that there were more quiet moments, like, or maybe not quiet, but just like, I think what we always remember when we think about Huck Finn is them on the raft together, and just sort of the moments of quiet between them, of bonding between them on the raft. And I guess with Jack, sometimes it's very easy to feel like he's always in peril,
Well, there's that whole section. Well, I can't wait to talk about Richard. That whole section when they're on the train and it's him and Richard. I hate Richard.
You hate Richard? We'll get there. I kind of
He's
like
such a wuss. He's such a wuss.
So inconsequential. They make him out to be this huge thing, and then nothing happens with him ever. It's so weird.
At one point in the book, King or Straub or whoever even makes an effort to differentiate Speedy from Jim.
Oh, really? I don't remember that.
Oh.
They mention Jim directly, and I remember laughing at it because they were trying to distance Speedy from a caricature, and I was like, "Oh, he's just a different kind of caricature."
Oh, he's a caricature, all right.
Yeah, he's not Jim, but like he's something else, King, and you should know better by now.
I'd actually argue Speedy is more of a caricature than Jim is from Huck Finn.
Right.
I mean, I know both of those characters have issues, but Jim, at least, I mean, maybe it's because we spend more time with him, gets a lot more nuance than Speedy does. I mean, Speedy to me very much embodies the magical Negro stereotype, like as much, if not more, than Jim does. But we'll get there. So.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good time then on that note to pivot over to our section. Do you guys agree? Is there anything else you want to say on structure and format?
It's long.
What was that?
It's long.
It's too damn long.
The book is long.
Yeah, so this is going to move us into our next section, heroes and villains.
I'm gonna have to kill this fucking clown. Welcome to the Losers Club, asshole!
Welcome to the Oh, sorry. Wrong one. Welcome to Heroes and Villains, formerly known as Zeros and Villains, which I'm going to keep reminding you all about. And
Randall, no.
All I can think of is, Zero to Hero from Hercules.
I thought Zero to Hero was from Vanilla Ice.
It could be.
Ditch that zero and get with the hero.
Oh, well, I think that was a precursor to 1995, 6 or 7's Hercules?
Wait, which Hercules?
The Disney Hercules.
Oh, he says Zero to Hero in that?
That's
a
one of the
song
songs.
called
the
Zero to
song.
Hero.
Yeah,
Zero
oh
to
wow,
Hero.
because that must have been stolen from Cool as Ice.
Cool as Ice.
I think the first person to say Zero to Hero probably lived hundreds of years before us. I don't think anyone has a copyright.
Well,
I think.
Well, I will say that in Cool as Ice, which I've seen multiple times because I own it on VHS, the first Vanilla Ice is absolutely the first one to say the sentence, "I'm gonna go schling a schlong," which is a real line he has in that movie.
Wow.
That movie's so funny. Let's move on. Heroes and Villains. This is where we talk about our favorite characters, our least favorite characters. We touch on all the main characters and kind of just offer up some insights, what works, what doesn't for us. And I think the neat thing about the Talisman is there's so many characters, but it's a really core sort of central group of main characters. So we won't have like it's not a huge sprawling list. It's more like we have a handful of really, really important characters. But since we were touching on Speedy previously, who is, I think a character that is written a touch problematically, we're going to talk about that a little bit. So what are your general thoughts on Speedy?
He's a nice guy. He's an old man that. No, I liked Speedy at the beginning, but I kept thinking that he was only going to be in the beginning from what I had overheard from the people that had already read the book. I don't know. I mean, he's definitely written a little problematic.
Well, it's just the language, and this is something we've talked about in previous episodes, which is that Stephen King will write white characters, they have accents, they have tics and qualities and everything, but really, really often when he writes, at least when his earlier career, I don't think he suffers from this as much anymore, but
Jerome.
Jerome was really well spoken. But it was the bit that he would do.
It was Tyrone Feelgood.
Tyrone Feelgood was not. So that I felt like that was in a way King acknowledging it, but yeah, it's like, but then he'll have these black characters speak in this affected dialect that is so pronounced and so written to the point of almost parody, which we've seen in multiple stories, especially in like Night Shift and stuff like that. So just seems,
and it's not even just the dialect. It's just like they always have these sayings and they speak in that kind of sing-songy tone a little bit, and I get what he's trying to do there, but it's also, like you said, he doesn't really do that with white characters, so it does feel like he's playing into that magical element a little too much. And it's weird too, because I think a character like even Dick Halloran has that a little bit, but I think he's really well developed as a character.
Definitely.
John Coffey has that, but I think his role in the story is problematic, but I do think he at least is well developed, and I don't feel that way about Speedy. I think I can maybe forgive some of the vocal qualities to him if he had more to do than just come out of nowhere and be like this magical folk kind of character,
Yeah, and he sort of exists as subservient to Jack in sort of a weird way. He sees Jack as sort of this savior kind of character. And if we learn at the end that Speedy is sort of a sheriff of sorts in the territories.
Right.
And I feel like we get one scene of him where he is Parkus and he speaks in a normal, like just straightforward dialect.
Yeah.
And that's the only time we see that, and the only time we learn anything about who Speedy is. We know that he is a force of good because Morgan is like scared of him in the territories area.
He scarred him.
Yeah.
Marcus gave him his traitor scars.
Yes. And so it's like, I just don't know why we never got more of Parkus, because I feel like that could be a really great way of fleshing out Speedy more. Otherwise, we just have him sort of being this all-knowing, strange, folksy character that is seemingly all-knowing in a really bizarre way, but also
the most textbook
stereotype
in that
stereotype. Yeah,
it's just pretty unforgivable, and especially after he's done these better examples like Dick Halloran. Judd Crandall, I guess, would be his white equivalent.
Sure,
and
yeah.
Judd's great.
Judd's
and
a great character. Yeah,
he just can't do it. And I think we've talked about this before, and Justin and I had traded like the census facts on Facebook of the black population in Maine, and it's just like there's no black people
Yeah.
in Maine. And so Stephen King, I feel like they did take on this mythical quality that kind of like is reflected in his books, because it's like you've never spoken to one. Great. Like,
Yeah, maybe Speedy is King's contribution, and Parkus is from Straub. He's like, oh no, he would just talk like this.
It's like, listen, Steve, we need to temper some of this a little bit. He's like,
no
come on,
joke.
Pete.
Well, and it's like Speedy is not really, we don't know much about him in terms of what are his flaws, like what
he's not a character.
He's not a character. And I guess that's something that I struggle with, is that King is usually so good at drawing out like a really interesting fleshed out person in very minimal amounts of time. And we don't get that with Speedy. He exists as a story device, you know?
Even when he's dying.
Yeah.
He's like dying on the ground and he's still spewing prophecies and being like, you just go on now. Like,
But it's weird because, like, on one hand, I'm like, okay, that's fine that he's kind of like this weird ethereal. We don't really get a lot of him at the beginning if he's supposed to be that omniscient, like, kind of knows what's going to happen character. But then he has a twinner who is real and just, you know, actually lives this. So, and it has a history with like Morgan of Orris and all this stuff, and Jack's, you know, father or his younger self and in the territories or whatever. And it's just like, what? Wait, so he is real? And if he is real, why aren't we fleshing him out more? Like, it's just
And just like, is he, I guess that's the thing, is like, is he human?
right. That's what I mean by real,
like in the
obviously
real
he's-
world, because he's clearly a functioning part of society in the territories world. So why is he magical in our world? It's a very confusing character. I think it's very approachable for, I mean, when I was a kid, I loved Speedy, you know, because he was lovable, and it was like he was an easy mentor character that I think you need. But as an adult, you just want a little bit more character and a little bit something more to grasp onto. But
and a little bit less racism. A lot less racism, I would even go as far as to say.
yeah, it's just a lot of
I do love-
yeah.
I do love that line. It's page 188. He says, "There's guys around here that fuck a pedal steel, Jack."
Oh boy.
Just like,
Maybe don't talk to a 12-year-old that way.
yeah, right. Oh, man.
If I talk to a 12-year-old that way, somebody would be calling the cops.
He talks about how the clerk gives him the stink eye because he's like sitting with Speedy outside the hotel, and like I think Speedy puts an arm around him at one point, and I'm like, okay, so nothing having to do with the race of the characters, but I would still be like, okay, what is this older man
Why is this
doing
man
with
touching this child?
this child?
It's like Mike randomly giving books to little boys.
Oh gosh.
Wait, what?
That was from our
That's
last
our
Needful Tweets
last
episode.
Needful Tweets episode.
Give it a
Behind-
listen if you haven't yet. It's just Mike being a total creep. No, we're just kidding. It was all a joke.
Love Mike. All right.
So yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about Traveling Jack as a character. I think for me, I feel like I had trouble tapping into Jack early on because he very much sort of exists as an archetype at first, of a beautiful, blank slate hero boy. And I mean, he has they do a nice job of painting him as grieving because he's lost his father and his mother is dying. And
uncle.
what was that?
And his uncle.
And you see sort of the struggle of him being with his mother in these days, and the fact that they go out to dinner and she's like getting drunk and stuff, and that's all very interesting. But I think that I didn't really start tapping into Jack as a character that I was really identifying with, honestly, until he got to the Oatly tap. Because that's when I think he has one of his first real tests as a person. He's in peril, and he's surrounded by weird, interesting people that really change the fabric of how he acts and how he's viewed, because they don't see him as a hero in any way, shape, or form. And I think that to me is, a lot more interesting. So
I just don't think there's anything interesting about Jack.
Really?
He's a little too precocious, which is the case with all King characters. Like a 12-year-old boy, I don't think would be having a lot of the thoughts that Jack has. To be fair, he does regress a couple times into like, oh, I just want my mother. This sucks.
yeah,
But
it is hard to buy him as 12.
yeah, he breaks down a couple times because he just can't see a way out of a situation, or he's so tired. But otherwise, I think he's super mature and very responsible for everything else around him. And even when he this is also a consequence of a bygone era. I feel like when he sets out alone and hitches across the country,
Yep.
he kind of takes to it with a weird ease.
Yeah.
For a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah. And how long had it been since his father had passed? Do we know?
I think maybe a year.
Because I can see if like it had been him and his mother for a long time, and he was kind of like the man of the house, trying to like help his mother out a lot, and kind of came into his own a little bit more, and that's why he was at ease. But it didn't seem like that. It didn't feel like that when he started setting out on the journey originally. Yeah. And I understand like when you go through something at like the Oatley Tap, you have to grow up real quick.
Yeah. And
I think they do a decent job of that, but it feels like it happens really quickly, but I guess this journey does take place over a long period of time. Yeah. It felt like it was quick.
I feel like he even knows when he first arrives at the Oatley. Like, he's so worldly. Like, he recognizes his error and is like, oh shit, like I'm in the pitcher plant. Like, this is going to be like this for a while. Like, he is so aware of the world around him and how bleak it is. I guess because he's gone through these deaths and like he knows that's a real thing that can happen in the world.
And there might just be the larger thing of, oh, he's touched, the talisman is calling him, and he is worldly because, he's been destined.
Connected to all the world.
Yeah. Which to me, though, isn't really that's not a good answer. I mean, I wanted to see Jack be young a little bit more.
Yeah, and have a flaw other than being exasperated by exasperating things.
Yes.
Like, he doesn't have any quirks.
It's true.
He doesn't have any, like, identifying characteristics other than being this boy who's on the road and it's a hard journey.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and you never get to
be beautiful,
What's that, Dan?
You never get to deal with Jack. Like, I agree completely with Mel. He's and if it's supposed to be some Christ metaphor, okay, maybe that's why he's so pure. But if you look at King's other younger characters like Danny and Mark Petrie, they're very likable, and in many ways they don't have a ton of flaws. But you're not quite sure if they're going to get out of this thing alive, like whatever they're dealing with. And with Jack, I feel like he always has the answer. I mean, he faces hardship and he gets tortured, but his resolve never weakens at all, and that just makes him so not interesting to me and so bland.
Yeah, like you said, he always has the answer. That's very true. I never felt like it's very rare that I felt like, Jack was completely at a loss and needed another guiding hand. Like Wolf saves him in the home, obviously, but even then I wouldn't have been worried about Jack getting out.
He's a true blue hero through and through. No, he really is, though. I mean, like
I just like that phrase.
I never really felt like he was really in peril. Even at the Sunlight Home, all these things, I didn't ever really think that he wasn't going to get out of it. And maybe that's because you just think, well, obviously he's going to get to the talisman at some point, so we know he's not going to get killed halfway through the book. But I don't know. Like I know, like if when you lose someone really close to you at a young age. You do grow up really quickly in the sense that certain things that matter don't matter anymore, and you kind of see the things that do matter. But he's still young enough to not realize that. I think the Oatley Tap, they do a good job, I guess, where he starts to realize, oh, I'm going to be here for a while now. But it's not like earned.
Yeah.
Like I felt like he should have still been a little naive about a lot of situational things.
Yeah, he is untouchable, and I feel like this happens a lot with King main characters that are heroes. Even though people around him, allies and enemies, get deformed and mutilated and die and get like just really fucked up, you don't even think Jack's gonna like break his arm.
Yeah.
Well, this is why. And when we get there to another character, this is why I still think that Gardner's like the main baddie, because I mean he's holding the flame to his hand, he's
but even that is just like, he gets a blister.
Right.
Like,
but I mean
I'm like, oh, they're definitely gonna burn his balls off.
but I think that's the only time I really felt like, well, shit, is something gonna happen to him? Like I wasn't really sure at that point, but then of course it doesn't. So yeah, he's I also thought it was really interesting, since we're talking about his character, that when he flips, his whole appearance changes. So when people are flipping to their and he's not, obviously, like he doesn't have a twinner anymore, and maybe that's why. But that's not the case, because Morgan Orris also looks different.
You always flip into.
But the description of his face seemed very Hobbit like. His ears are like down to his chin, and his eyes change to brown, and I don't know. It just sounded very much like that. So that's why I was also bewildered by how beautiful he was in this other world. Ridiculous.
No, I hear you. It's like I guess I relate to Jack occasionally. But it was always in moments where I felt like he was overpowered, you know, like Oatly Tap, obviously the Sunlight Home. I think maybe one of my favorite moments of Jack in the whole series is in the whole book, feels like a series, is when he flips over at the Sunlight Home and sees the horror of the slave camp, because that to me is at least maybe one of the best descriptions of Jack being completely overwhelmed and unable to process what he's witnessing. And it was what the purest moment of horror for me, I think maybe in the whole book, was that moment. And a moment that I think you could really see Jack as this little boy, you know, lost in the world. That, and then along those same lines, just, you had mentioned this earlier, but the threat of like pedophiles, you know?
Yeah.
And
which I think is very overblown in this book. It's like every other car I get into, this guy wants to blow me.
everyone wants to fuck him. And
When-
like every
and then-
car.
What
I love to how there's like that nice pedophile who like doesn't go for it. Like he just gives him money and then he's like, no, it's okay. It was like this weird redeeming thing. I don't know. But like, because Jack kept like waiting for it, and then I think the implication was that the guy is a creep and did want to, but he stopped himself. And I'm like, man, I don't need to see different shades of
Pedophilia.
on the road.
I also think this is big where they were like, you know, hitchhiking was frowned upon. So
sure.
So they were like starting to like really
It's
put
just
that
crazy.
out there. Like,
He's like,
maybe you
he
don't
meets
want to
one
do
like
this.
every day. Like,
Yeah, this is like 84. This is like, you know, Johnny getting kidnapped and sold into sex slavery kind
Yeah,
of
it's
era.
peak pedophilia years, and the year I was born. So
Nice.
whatever that says.
What are you trying to say, Dan?
What
I
a
had no
coincidence.
oh my god.
No, sorry.
I think the parts where I'm related to Jack most strongly are related to what you're saying, Randall.
Yeah.
And I think when he gets exasperated with characters that are being really obnoxious from his point of view, you're like, yeah, that would be so annoying. But in fact, he's way too patient with Richard, first
Yes.
of all. And he's not patient enough with Wolf.
Oh God, I
I
can't
think
wait to get
that's
there.
why he's patient with Richard, though,
Yeah, he learned.
because he says, like, as soon as Wolf's out of the picture, he's like, I can't believe I gave him such a hard time here.
Well, and
here,
he
here, and here.
considers leaving him like a couple times, and I'm like, yeah, that's realistic. Like, he's honestly a very big drag on your whole endeavor here, but you did drag him over. So
Do we want to talk about Wolf?
yeah,
sure.
I have a lot of thoughts on Wolf. Wolf is fan favorite character, which is obvious by the comments on our Facebook posts, things like that. People are excited. They love Wolf. And I loved Wolf too when I was a kid. I remembered how much how lovable that character was and how sad it is when, you know, well, his rampage is fucking incredible through the Sunlight Home, just butchering all those assholes. And then
children.
yeah, I know,
Some
asshole
butchering
children, asshole teenagers.
Those jerks.
But I, you know, I mean, that's like that section to me. That's one of the most earned rampages, like in Stephen King history,
Oh,
because
yeah.
you hate those guys.
Well,
like,
you're ready. You're ready.
You're
for
so
him to
ready
tear
for
up.
it.
And
Yeah.
God, as
And,
soon
like-
as they put him in the box, I was like, oh, this is gonna be. They started talking about the moon. I was like, can't wait.
And it's
Wait for this to
good.
happen.
It's cathartic and it's awesome and it's sad the way he goes down. And also, but I realized redoing it, it's not just because like the Sunlight kids are also awful. It's because, man, this whole book has just been, or this whole section has just been Wolf getting the shit kicked out of him and being depressed and basically crushed and terrified. And I'm like, I remember loving Wolf, but I feel such pity, like because and I never really buy, because Jack flips, he meets Wolf, they bond for a couple pages, and then Morgan rips through the air, and then they escape. And then Wolf is never happy again.
Yep.
We see Wolf happy for like 3 pages. And maybe I'm underselling it, but the idea that there is this super strong, I can understand there being a bond because between Jack and Wolf, because they do all this traveling together, but Wolf's like worship of Jack feels very unearned. It's very rare that you see them have fun together. You do in that first thing, but then every time that they try to do anything, Wolf freaks out, is scared, gets bullied, Jack yells at him.
Yeah.
And it's like, even the movies, like I was hoping the movies I didn't remember that sequence when I was rereading, and I was like, oh, maybe this is like a really sweet scene where they just watch a movie together.
But also, like, what a stupid idea.
It's a
Like, that Jack thought that would work.
I know, but I was like just really hoping that, it would be like 2 hours of them just watching a movie and having fun. And then no, Wolf freaks out immediately and they have to run out. It's like Wolf never gets a break. It's literally like watching a dog get abused for,
Well,
you
it
know,
is. I
I
mean-
know, like
Well,
75
I really
pages.
felt like when I first started reading the character, we first meet him in the territories, I thought it was like Tom Cullen's twinner.
Oh, I know.
No, exactly.
And
That's
it's treated
the-
like that
It's
too.
another stereotype that is so on the nose of like the charming simpleton that
Yeah.
King loves. He just he can't
Yeah.
stop himself.
And instead of the MOON, he just says wolf all the
Or
time.
right
And,
here
like,
and now.
Wait, are you
I-
criticizing him for saying wolf all the time?
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, all the wolves do that. It's not just wolf.
MOON, that spells wolf.
I was gonna say I don't
That's
think
true.
I actually like Tom Cullen a lot as a character. I do recognize that it's kind of bad stereotype Stephen King plays with. I think with Wolf it didn't bother me as much because he's a different race of creature, you know. So I don't know. It felt very.
But he's
I don't know,
supposed to be simple even for a wolf.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
they mentioned that.
It's a simple wolf. But,
Simple Jack.
That's the Simple Jack and Simple Wolf. You know, the
I think
spin-off.
though the wolf section though for me, I mean, regardless of how we feel about him as a character, I do think the section where Jack is with Wolf feels the most streamlined and direct, and I can follow it, and it has actual consequences. So
Sure.
for me, that it was almost this like beautiful little novella in the middle of a book that I otherwise wasn't that big of a fan of, and I think that. I don't know. The wolf part in the Sunlight Home, it all feels just so you can grasp onto it. There's no video game repetition. There's no like nonsensical world building and all these terms. You're just with these two guys for like I mean, not a long time, but a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it feels like a little bit of an oasis in the middle of the book for me. And I was really moved when he died, and I knew he was going to die, but I kept hoping he wouldn't. So hey, I'm on Team Wolf. I'm the NWO Wolf Pack. So you guys, you can be over there at WCW, Hollywood Hogan, and that's fine though.
I'm a big Wolf fan. I almost said Wolf Head, but I'm trying to be cognizant of it.
We can be wolf heads.
I'm a big Wolfie, and you know, I just love how he constantly is talking about God pounding this, God pounding that. I love the God pound it phrase. God, they use it so much in this book.
Yeah,
No, yeah, I like Wolf, and I agree with Dan. I think any point where you get where Jack can actually have a dialogue for multiple chapters because there's someone else there to talk to. It all of a sudden it becomes really easily, like, you can follow it a lot easier, and it resonated in my mind a lot more, those chapters, and then the chapters at the Sunlight Home.
but most of that dialogue was Jack yelling at Wolf.
I'm not saying it was good dialogue. I'm just saying, no, I just mean that it was easier to follow. It was easier for me to be like, oh, I remember that whole conversation they had.
It was hard for me to buy the love that they had for each other because
I feel like part of that is from Wolf, like the prophecy. Wolf knew of his father,
Yes.
Oh, okay.
and like he's like, oh, you're him.
Good point.
And then the whole, can we talk about that? The whole, like, for Jason's sake, like they say that a bunch. Like Jason, they really refer to Jason from that other world as some kind of
Jesus.
deity almost. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's like
Christ.
So I can see Wolf
Jesus,
also,
and we do mean Christ.
if Wolf is like a simple wolf, I can also see him kind of being so just like blindly loyal to Jason.
My favorite thing about
Jack.
the wolves, trying to pronounce it correctly because you don't say wolves, is the world building about their people. Like, they're werewolves that tend to cattle or sheep, cows, whatever those things are. Like, that's their whole deal, is that they are actually these nurturing caretakers that happen to have an affliction that leaves them rampaging, killing people for one night out of the month or whatever. I just thought it was like such a cool idea for a race of werewolves. Like, that's really cool. And that's another reason why I think he's so tied to Jack, is that Jack immediately becomes his herd.
Yes.
So he has to feel like this really defensive. I like Wolf I think he would have been so much more rewarding if he wasn't this stupid archetype of like the simple Tom Cullen. Like, I hate that. Like, I think it's a cheap play to be like, he's very childlike, and so it's all the more upsetting when bad things happen to him. And King just like really loves to
Torture.
do the really important shit with like, oh, someone you wouldn't think was capable of like being that important. And like, I just hate it so much. Like, how much more rewarding would it have been to see a more, I don't know, like cognizant, intellectual wolf still going through these terrifying things and like not able to comprehend this world and like making the sacrifice at the end. Like there's just more to work with there. This is too easy. And it's a stereotype. I hate it, but I really like the wolves.
And then he feels less pitiful too. Because I think that's the thing about Wolf is it feels so pitiful. Like all he does, he's just so unhappy. And that to me it really became not enjoyable for me to read. Because I'm like, and maybe it's because I'm like a bleeding heart when it comes to animals, but it's just
Randall just didn't like seeing Wolf put in pain.
I didn't like, in the Sunlight Home, it was different. I love the Sunlight Home sequence because that makes a lot of sense. But just like being in our world was torture for him. Mm-hmm. And I understand that. And I think that's a cool distinction to make between the worlds. It was just really hard for me to, I can't love a character if all they're doing is being beaten on. And so that's why the catharsis is great when he does rebel. And I will say that my other favorite wolf sequence is the one where, Jack goes in the shed and he's there for like 3 days while Wolf goes and does his thing. And I kind of love that we stay with Jack in the shed and the way that he kind of loses concepts of time. And then doesn't Jack or Wolf like put food under
like raw meat,
which is really funny and like really sweet too. Like that, I think that was like a really great sequence.
Well, that was odd to me though.
Why?
Because like I thought that Wolf when he goes full werewolf, that they had to protect themselves from the herd. So it seemed weird that he would come back and still feed the herd.
That's what they do. That they put the herd in like a safe place and they still take care of them. But they just, if they look at them, they might lose control or whatever. But the herd supersedes the moon madness a little bit.
Or just the whole idea of Wolf. So if Wolf is simple in this aspect, when he goes full werewolf, would he still be? I
think they're all the same when they go full werewolf.
Okay, they're just like full crazy, like animalistic. That's it.
It's all about
it is just meat. Like when he is tortured in this world, there's no real argument to be brooked there. It's almost a little boring because it's just like, okay, he's incapable. There's no way around this. He can't even think about it because he's simple and like, I don't know. It's just really frustrating for me.
I just needed a little bit more like active qualities to that character. Like in what ways was he really trying to help Jack?
Well, I'll tell you right now, if they major mistake killing off Wolf, they should have continued to have him because then we get Richard, who's even more pathetic.
Seriously, they should have killed off Richard early on. And just not I would have much rather seen Wolf with him on the train for that. Oh god. Anyway, keep going, Max. Sorry, I completely agree.
If they just had continued to have Wolf, or even if he had met. You know how we meet Wolf's older brother, younger brother?
Yeah.
At the end,
younger brother.
Even if we had met him at some weird funeral sequence halfway through, and then he continued on with them.
Yeah, but I think that there's an interesting. I'll say this: I don't think it's fully explored, but the concept that Richard is Morgan's son, and that Richard and Jack.
We're talking about Richard now. Let's talk about Richard.
Yeah, I think it's time to pivot.
I think it's time to talk about Richard.
We can go back to Wolf if we need to, but I think that with Richard, there's the idea that he also experienced territories. Like he saw the hints and clues of Morgan leaving and disappearing, and he was lost by that stuff when he was young. Finding that connection between Jack and Richard, I think, is really interesting. And also just, I guess maybe when I was young and I read this, it reminded me of a friendship that I had with the son of some of my parents, or my parents, the son of my parents.
Some of my parents.
No, my parents' friends.
He wasn't like the son of God.
He wasn't like a cousin, but he felt like a cousin. He was basically the son of my parents' friends. And but we were vacation buddies and stuff. But we kind of grew apart as we got older, And he was kind of a jock and really cool, and I was kind of a dweeb. And there was this distinction between us, and I was kind of the Richard in the situation and he was the Jack. And so I guess in a weird way, I related to the idea of these very different people who were raised as childhood friends, but have kind of deviated. And their friendship is already kind of inherently fractured in the concept of them coming together. It is weird that Richard doesn't show up until halfway through the book. We hear about him, but there's never really. I really wish that we could have seen him earlier in the book, but. I do agree that he's kind of a wuss and he is annoying, but I don't know. I think I weirdly have kind of a soft spot for Richard, and I found the dynamic that he brought to Jack in terms of personality to be at least more interesting and a little bit more active than what Wolf was bringing.
I would not say active at all.
I think by the end
Well,
he
will
starts to
someone
become
tell me
active because
why-
he's the one holding the talisman in the end.
But will someone tell me why Richard is so god-pounded important?
Well, because he's
Because
Morgan's
he's also
son.
a single-natured.
Yeah, and he's single-natured.
Yeah, but what like?
Yeah, why do we?
Multiple...
I don't know. Like from a literary standpoint, I'm not sure quite what he does or how he even really helps
Well,
Jack by the end of it.
It's more of a think of what would happen if he wasn't allied with Jack. Morgan wants to pass down everything to Richard. He's like a
that's true,
key
yes.
ally.
Well, I think the problem with that, I get what you're saying there, but I think the problem with that is that Morgan doesn't seem to give a shit about Richard later on
Right.
when we get to those points.
And
he's
that's
just kind of
where
like,
I
well, he's probably
struggle.
dead already. And you're like, wait, well then why is it important that we have Richard here? Well, because Jason, now I'm getting confused. No, it is Jason. Jack's like, he talks about like, he just like, for some reason, he just knows that Richard needs to be with him. But then all Richard serves to do is just be like this total drag, and then this nuisance at the end where he has to drag him around on his back.
Yeah,
I mean, he
that's
doesn't
annoying.
do anything.
Well,
I mean, he fleshes out his character a little bit more, but
hey, he wields a mean Uzi at the train.
Oh, my favorite line from that is this page 697, badass traveling Jack, when he's like, tear them up.
Oh,
and they
yeah.
start, like machine gunning them, and I was like, what the hell? You know what this felt?
I think it even says like Jason took over and like.
Oh boy.
You know what this book felt like to me? It was like adaptation. You know
Oh,
how
yeah?
it's like how all of a sudden it just goes off the rails. It's just an action movie.
It is very bizarre,
But, and
yeah.
I actually really like the
I enjoyed
book.
that
There's
too,
parts
yeah.
of it I don't like, but for the most part, I do really like the book. But that
Jack's
moment
way
was
too
just
patient
so
with Richard.
crazy.
His whole like thing at the boarding school where he's like, no, it's a brain tumor. No, it's a fever. It's so fucking annoying. Like, just pick that motherfucker up and like take it. Like, he's so awful. I would have like slapped him several times.
Well, there's two points where I had to put the book down and just kind of go, Richard, you idiot.
Yeah.
Well, when he says like he thinks it's like the Colombian drug cartel outside.
Oh, yeah.
like shooting at them. I was like, what?
I will say though, I agree with you guys so much, and one of the big disappointments of this book for me is that we never like Morgan and Richard never come together in the end.
Yeah.
If anything, to me, that should have been what ended Morgan. Like that should have been like Richard's involvement should have been the hubris, the thing that destroyed Morgan in the end.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he was just destroyed by, the talisman being a deus ex machina kind of thing was a little bit disappointing. And I remember feeling that when I was younger too. And I mean, Richard is there. He feels like almost more for thematic reasons than, and I said active earlier, but I'll just say that at least we saw Richard kick a little ass, with an Uzi in his hand. And I feel like he did offer support that Jack needed at certain times. And in the end, he was the one holding the talisman so Jack could like not be driven insane by it. So it's like, I think that's sort of the purpose that Richard played was basically like maybe keeping Jack's like, otherworldliness, deity qualities like grounded.
Yeah.
So he didn't
He
become
has that
like,
Gollum moment that Richard has to snap him out of.
exactly. Yeah.
I was
Which is interesting.
just about to say he's kind of like Samwise a little bit. Like we don't really get enough of him. He's kind of complaining the whole time, and then he's
fair,
the
he
one
is
that bears
covered
the
in
burden.
boils.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's another thing too. He just starts to fall apart. I'm like, is he like the sacrificial lamb here? Like, what is he going to be? I thought that he was going to end up being the way that he was able to get the talisman, but it was going to be some kind of weird, like, had to sacrifice his best friend kind of thing. But that would be right in line with the Bible. So,
well, that's what I thought they were going for. That when all those beetles were coming out of him, and I actually thought that would have been a more effective ending. But then it's just like, oh no, I got the talisman, I healed him, haha. And I don't know,
Roll it over his crotch.
Yeah, and like going to the Uzi thing too. I don't know. I think because Richard came off as just a sniveling wimp to me that I just picture the Uzi thing and be like, yeah, like it felt like Ready Player. Well,
You know what
sorry,
I-
you guys like Ready Player One better.
Yeah,
than that thing, yeah.
You know what I think of is that scene in Dr. No where the bikini-clad femme, the movie starts firing the machine gun and just like literally fires herself off of the platform because she can't handle the machine gun. Oh, jeez. Richard.
Any other thoughts on Richard?
No.
Besides, he's a little dork.
I heard Richard. No, but well, how about another hero? I guess. Question
Okay.
Mark? We could talk about a little bit about Lily Sawyer.
Ah.
Or
Who's that?
Queen Laura. Is it Delosian?
Probably.
It's a Delassian.
Delosian.
I don't know.
Either one.
I think she's a fun character. I like that King kind of gives her a few moments in the hotel when she's kind of dying to still be involved in the action somehow. Like when the bird is outside of her window and she punches through the glass to like attack the bird that's talking to her in Morgan's voice or whatever. I think that's a cool little moment. And it really it shows that even when she's like on the verge of dying, she really retains that sort of piss and vinegar kind of aspect of her, which is probably, a very appealing aspect of that character.
I think there's also total like faith things there where she knows Jack is out there, but the further he gets away, the more sick she seems to become.
Yeah.
The closer he gets to the talisman, the more like she's about to die, but she's still holding on to seeing him. Mm-hmm. And nothing kind of shakes that faith in her son. And I like her whole backstory of just her being in this old movie star.
She has a very
rich
backstory.
They really flesh her out early on. And then she just is gone.
Yeah,
I wish we had more of her story kind of paralleling, because they go through they really do kind of start building her up in the beginning, and I think that we're going to be with her the whole time too. And then they only go back to her like once or twice, and it's just kind of like, what?
Yeah.
She's the whole reason he's doing this.
Yeah, or the fact that, and I love that last line of the novel, like the epilogue, whatever, when they're like, and the queen opened her eyes or whatever. Like, I love that little last, like, that would be like the stinger after the credits, if it was a movie. But I wish we had, I'm like, can we get some time with the queen and see why she's so great? Like, we never really get to see her.
Yeah, the queen is
in
a
her time
non-entity.
of like anything, even in the flashback or anything. We don't really get to see her doing her thing.
Yeah, Laura, both Lily and the queen are pretty empty to me, and it's very disappointing because she's the entire reason why the book exists, why his journey exists. And I actually have the same problem with the talisman itself, because we don't know anything about it until the final like 100 pages. Like, it's such you just forget about it. Like,
it's a crystal ball, it's like, what is it?
Well, and it's, I don't know, and the whole piss and vinegar thing you were talking about feels like, have this interesting thing about, I guess. Like, I feel like King does this a lot, actually, with his secondary female characters. Where it's like, she's sassy, so you gotta like her, but I'm not gonna do anything else with her. It's true. She's fucking annoying.
She languishes in a bed the whole book. Whereas, I mean, there is the concept that
to be honest, Randall, she's dying of cancer.
I know, but I'm saying,
like, get up.
I'm saying that
get up and do something in the hotel.
It would have been neat if, like, because there is the concept that she's in danger there, like at the hotel.
And so there's a chapter where we're in Morgan's eyes, and he's talking about how he instructed everyone at the hotel to not go in the room and not help her and not do anything. Or whatever that is, right? That happens, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, cool. So maybe we're going to get a little bit of like her trying to deal with like, trying to like live, trying to hold on and like get through these,
why doesn't he just
adversities.
kill her?
I know. I was wondering that too. And I almost felt like that could have been a really cool subplot, is like her sort of overcoming an assassination attempt, or maybe Elroy visits her. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like something like that. I remember expecting something like that when I first read it. And then she's just really gone for the entirety of the book.
It seemed really weird at one point that Morgan didn't just kill her. She's in a very weakened state. They keep saying that if you die in this world, chances are you could die in the other world very soon.
Just
like
send
something else
Osmond
could
to do
happen.
it. Like, you had him kill everyone else.
Yeah.
And then I thought maybe there was a reason why. Maybe because he felt like as long as she was alive, he could use her to threaten Jack if Jack got in the way or something, because he knew that maybe Jack was playing a bigger role. But I don't know. I mean, obviously, we get really nitpicky about it, but I don't think we are. I think that's a big question. Like, why didn't they just kill Laura?
Well, the queen is such like a
Lily,
non-entity,
Yeah.
Like, it's so there's like we see her the one time when he like sees the body, and maybe that's sort of the I don't know,
her name has so much power and her image has so much power, and we never like why? That's such a cop out.
Yeah. Like what purpose does she serve?
He's always like, in her name, I command thee. Or like showing the coin, they're like, oh my god, the queen.
Well, and again, and then if this were to be a series of books, which I know we got the Black House later on, and that there might even be something else after that, possibly. But so I thought, like, if this was the beginning of a series, maybe we would get, maybe the next one would follow her, or the next one would follow, you know what I mean? But it doesn't happen. So, yeah, I don't know. Are there any other heroes that we want to talk about?
I don't think so. I think whoever's left are probably in terms of being interesting are the bad guys, because I think there's some fun. I mean, I feel like we've talked about Morgan a lot. We can discuss him more if you guys want, but I think it'd be more fun to talk about Gardner / Osmond, who is probably my favorite character in the book.
Yeah, I love Osmond.
Well, I love sham preachers like as archetypes, you know, and I feel like he's such a dandy, you know, like he's so clad in these like fop clothes, like both as Osmond and as Gardner. And I kind of love that he's a badass while also being like, oh, you know, like with the ruffles
like
and the
dancing
frills
around.
Yeah. I know, like at the end, like when he's like literally, it's like in a cartoon or something, like he's just bouncing behind Morgan, like just like, I'm gonna kill him.
Yeah. I always so when I was first reading it, I pictured Pip Torrens, you know, from Preacher and The Crown. Do you know what I'm talking about, Dan?
Pip Torrens. Wait, an actor or character?
Hair Star.
Oh, Hair Star. Yeah.
Yeah. The bald kind of. He's in like season 2 more so, right? I think. Yeah,
you see him just have a quick cameo in season 1, I think, in a pre-credit sequence, and then he would actually be
Crispin
great.
Glover with like long hair.
Crispin Glover would be amazing.
Too, yeah, and I thought he was great. He was really terrifying to me, and I think those kinds of characters, though. The ones, these preachers that they twist something good into evil you know, like this boys' home where it's supposed to be this thing that's really good, and 9 times out of 10 boys' homes are always awful, and like the people running them are always really terrible people.
Yeah.
I'm giving a really bad name to some probably really nice boys' homes out
it's
there.
okay.
But from my experience in the media and in, you know,
the fake news
movies, that always seems to be the case. But I think it's just a really scary, twisted thing, because you can't trust adults and you can't trust people in organizations that are supposed to be there, like these faith-based organizations that are supposed to be there to help you, and they end up kind of being these nightmarish hellscapes.
I literally like how the commonalities that you said about the foppishness, those carry over across worlds.
Yeah.
But otherwise, there are like some really interesting differences between them. Like, you know that Osmond in the Territories is not smart enough to like recruit a bunch of boys to his side because he's going to be good at preaching.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's more cartoony, he's more villainish. He just likes to whip people and like be this crazy ass prancing around guy. And whereas Sunshine Gardner, far more scheming, far more intelligent, scary in much of the same ways, but not like calling anyone a goat's penis. Like, I just think that the differences between the twinners are intriguing.
I just got to read the description of Osmond's outfit from page 116. Osmond was only 2 paces away now, regarding Jack with that mad, melancholy gaze. He wore a leather jacket and what might have been diamond studs. His shirt was extravagantly ruffled. A bracelet of links clanked ostentatiously upon his right wrist. From the way he handled the bullwhip, Jack guessed that his left was his working hand. His hair was drawn back and tied with a wide ribbon that might have been white satin. There were 2 odors about him. The top was what his mother called all those men's perfumes, meaning aftershave, cologne, whatever. The smell about Osmond was thick and powdery. It made Jack think of those old black and white British films where some poor guy was on trial in the Old Bailey. The judges and lawyers in those films always wore wigs, and Jack thought the boxes those wigs came out of would smell like Osmond, dry and crumbly sweet, like the world's oldest powdered donut. And it's like,
I've always loved that phrase. Actually, a play that I wrote in college that Mac was actually in, I stole that line, like, oh, they smell like the world's oldest powdered donut. Like, and that's like the one good thing I've taken from the Talisman. I love that line.
What are you talking about?
Hobbled. I think remember that flower they smell in Hobble? They
yeah.
smell it, and someone's like, "Oh, it smells old but sweet, like the world's our oldest powdered donut," or some shit. I don't know. I ripped it off. I
King's gonna
plagiarized.
come after you.
You plagiarist. No, I guess there's something so delightfully evil about that character that I just super respond to. And if there is another big disappointment, it's that we don't learn he has a little demon child until so late in the book. Like, why do we not see Ruel, if that's how you pronounce it, until the train sequence?
I like to pronounce it Rule.
Maybe. I just really, really wish that character had in some way, shape, or form popped up before then.
Well, it's complicated too because he's always saying all boys are bad, all boys are bad. Like, what about your own son?
Oh man, that sequence.
Also, what is who or what is the mother of that child?
I know. I wish we could know that. Like, it's really creepy and lovely to me.
When he starts yelling, I think it's Osmond starts yelling things like "root him out, that baddest boy." You know?
It's axiomatic.
Just the way he talks, so weird. But that's what that stuck with me. You know?
Yeah. It's a really, really indelible kind of villain. I love a good foppish villain who is also really threatening. To me, it can be really, really fun and powerful.
Can we sidetrack real quick and talk about Twinners and the logic there?
I was going to put that under our problems.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we can cover that in a little bit then, because I got to talk about that because it's kind of confusing.
Does it relate to Osmond and Gardner?
I just because we were talking about Osmond and Gardner, and where Jack and some of these other guys didn't have twins,
right? And that's I feel like Osmond and
alive.
Gardner are those are the characters that really have the most distinct. Their twinners are explored the most, in terms of both characters get equal time, unlike say Parkus and Speedy.
Or even Morgan.
Or even Morgan.
Morgan of Oris, we get almost nothing.
It gets convoluted with Morgan.
Yeah.
And that's what we'll talk about that obviously. But yeah.
Well, and also too, I feel like early on in the book, there's all these secondary characters. Not all of them, but there's a few like the Captain Farron or something.
Yeah.
And there's just all these people who have. I'm like, man, I do not need to see all these different soldiers and captains and villains and then also their twinners. It just got so. Anyway, but we'll save that for that new section we have. But yeah, it just got it got to be a bit much very early on. I felt like.
Any other characters we want to touch on?
Villains?
Smokey and Laurie.
Smokey, I love just in terms of being a classic king dirtbag kind of character, I think Smokey's really well written. I love that he wears a little paper hat all the time. I love that he's always at his calculator and doing shit. It's a really specific, interesting, mean kind of king dirtbag villain, and I love him. And I feel like we get just enough of him. So
I picture who's the guy who plays Otis Firefly in
Bill Moseley?
Yes.
Yeah, Bill Moseley would be perfect.
But yeah, no, he's really creepy. I really don't like him. I love that he hires Jack even after being like, "Oh my god, your stepfather did that too."
Yeah.
And immediately starts beating him.
I know. Well, I think he sees that. He's like, okay, I can control this kid. Yeah. And that's and the fact that he develops this creepy, you're not going anywhere, I'm keeping you here, you know what I mean? It's just so unsettling.
We didn't discuss, the details of your meals, so of course that comes out of your pay.
Oh yeah, that's such a heartbreaking little moment. That and just the way that they depict the crowded bar.
It sounds like hell.
It sounds like hell.
Yeah.
Which I love. That whole I just love the Oatley sequence, and I also love just I know, and maybe I think I have this in Cemetery a little bit, but just that the trip into the town through the tunnel where there's something in the tunnel.
What was in the tunnel?
Well,
is it Elroy?
I think
it might have been Elroy.
It's probably Elroy because he pops up soon. But
why didn't he just kill him?
I know, right?
I don't know if he knew he was really in there.
But no, I think Smokey's one of the best minor characters in the story, and definitely to me kind of anchored one of the freakiest sequences of the whole book. Yeah.
Well, what about one of the most ridiculous names of all time and characters?
Smokey Updike?
That one is ridiculous.
No, Ferd Janklow.
Ferd Janklow.
Ferd.
Yeah.
Ferd.
I like that story because it kind of reminds me of the Shawshank, about the story about the one guy that did get away. Mm-hmm. But then obviously find out he didn't really get away.
Well, that to me is one of the most
terrifying
and devastating sequences is when you learn that he didn't get away and that he is living in that slave pit, Like that, the build to that and the reveal of that is extremely powerful.
So scary.
Yeah. Now, like for Janklo, a doom is coming your way because we are about to tie you down to the bed, strap you up, and take an axe to your foot. Or a sledgehammer, depending. Because it's time for a brand new segment we're calling Misery.
She died. She just slipped away.
Slipped away! Slipped away! She didn't just slip away! You did it! 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 You murdered my misery!
Annie!
So Misery is a brand new section. We realized we didn't really have a section to discuss maybe things that we struggled with the book, problematic moments, story threads, or just general questions of logic that really didn't work. So this is a section where we're gonna complain a little bit. We're gonna critique a little bit. We're gonna go into what did not work in this book for us.
More than we already have.
More than we already
focused
have.
way.
Yeah, we always get our critiques out there, but I think sometimes it takes a little bit more focus to zero in on it a little bit more. And it's not that we hate the Talisman as a book; it's just that this was one where we realized that there were a lot of sections we wanted to dig into in terms of critiquing it.
Well, there's a lot there. So
yeah, I mean, we got a lot of
this
pages.
This is a good book to start this section with. I
Maybe
think.
it won't work and we'll take it out, but let us know, listeners.
It would have been weird to start this with like Pet Cemetery or something,
Yeah. So did you guys want to talk about the twinning logic to kick things
There's
up?
Like so many inconsistencies here.
So let's talk about what about it specifically doesn't work? Like, when did it first start rearing its head and you being like, wait a minute, what is this?
Here's what the book presents as twinner rules, twinner guidelines.
Okay, yeah, please, because I'm still a little fuzzy.
Right. If you have a twinner and you cross over, you inhabit the body of that twinner.
Are you in control of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Morgan refers to it as a kind of benign possession.
Right.
The person that you possess, like, almost doesn't have a problem with it because they're like, oh, this is cool. Who are you? And you get to inhabit them in that world. It's not you traveling over in your own body and meeting your other self. It's you literally inhabiting your other self.
But you do not retain the memories of that other person at all.
Yeah, it's weird. You don't get to know everything that they know.
Right, because Osmond, when he switches from Osmond to Gardner, like he doesn't know, like he runs into him in one world, but in the other world, when he's Gardner, he thinks he knows that they met, but he doesn't know who.
Inklings.
So in that case, if that happened, why doesn't he just go over and then I guess he can't talk to his other self when he's over there, like in his head, and be like, you ever seen this kid before? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? There's no communication there. He's just kind of, like you said, like he's just kind of taking over the body for the weekend kind of deal. But
there's some like mental connections. It's just hard to access and like hard to parse, I think.
Right.
The other thing that's important, that is one of the biggest inconsistencies, I think, is that when you go over to the territories and inhabit your twinner and move around, when you come back, you've traveled the equivalent distance in our world. That's why they can go into the closet, disappear, come back, and they have to like come from miles away to return home.
Well, my understanding was that if you were in the territories and you traveled, it took you a lot longer to travel in the territories. Like you could travel for a long time in the territories, and then you come back, and you'd only be so many.
No, it's the other way around.
It's the other way around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like if you walk a mile in the territories, you walk like 10 miles in.
Okay.
Over here.
Which is why his dad would disappear from the closet, and then he'd be like, why is my dad's car pulling into the driveway hours later?
Yeah.
So there are points in the book when that doesn't happen. They totally break this rule. There's a point where Morgan goes into Morgan of Orris on 426 when he's laying in his bed in our world, and he's in the diligence that's traveling.
Yeah.
And when he comes back, he's still in his bed.
So here's another thing.
So weird.
There's moments where, and Justin, I wish Justin was here because he was kind of trying to explain this to me. He's read that a couple times now, where he doesn't, when he kind of rips away through the universe. That's not the same.
His way through the other
so that's
world.
not the same as when he flips to, let's say Morgan Sloat flips into Morgan of Orris. he goes to wherever Morgan of Orus is.
He's supposed to go where Morgan is, but this is like him teleporting.
His perverted way of ripping into the universe, he can do that as well. He, all of a sudden, he becomes Morgan of Orus. Morgan of Orus kind of gets like pulled out of time and brought to wherever he is. So it's very weird that they introduced that, and because I don't think they actually even try to explain all of this until like page 600 something.
Yeah,
where it's like a Morgan of where they talk about that. So I don't know. It's really weird that they introduced that so late in the game, or at least try to explain it.
Do they try to explain it? What do they say?
They do. Well, they talk about the logic that you were just mentioning about the twinner logic. I've got it written down. Hold on, someone else take it over. I'm gonna look this
one
up.
other problem with Ferd.
Yeah,
he goes to the slave camp.
Yeah,
Jack watches him die.
Yeah,
and then later he says they exhumed the bodies of the boys that had died at the Sunshine Home, and Ferd's was among them. And they why would you who is bringing his body back? You disappear when you go into the territories.
Yeah. That's so I can't make sense heads or tails of it. I feel like
they just didn't think about it hard enough and didn't tie up all these loose
that's
ends.
like what's so hard about like when you create another world is you start to open so many doors in terms of logical kind of things. And I think that's why I don't know, maybe I just learned over the years that to really start investigating too deep into those like questions of logic, I'll just like start running around in circles. I feel like I just started like every now and then I would just find myself questioning the single natured aspect of it and what that means and why, Rushton died and Richard didn't. Like, do we have an answer for that?
No, we don't.
Because I don't understand that, and I don't know if it's explained. It never felt adequately explained.
Wait, what?
Like just Rushton, who was Richard's twinner, and Jason, like both dying as children or whatever, and then Jack and Richard being alive. I don't understand.
Well, they don't say they always die. They say they could like. In many cases they do, but sometimes they don't, and they survive.
Yeah,
and then
they almost
you're
always
like
do.
analog or whatever.
And both of them were in similar situations. Jack was almost getting strangled by Morgan in his world, and Richard almost drowned like Rushton did.
Yes.
So it's like they narrowly escape this weird fate.
It still feels like very undefined.
Yeah, it does.
So on page 605 of the pocketbook edition is where they talk about the benign possession thing. It's just random because I was like, oh, finally, you're going to tell us what exactly happens, because you haven't yet, and we're 600 pages into the book. But I think a really interesting thing they could have done with this, they mention like, it says Sloat had read of more violent cases of possession, and although the subject did not greatly interest him, thanks, it interests us. Because he guessed that the poor unlucky slobs so afflicted had been taken over by mad hitchhikers from other worlds, or perhaps it was the American world itself which had driven them mad. So I just feel like that sounds way more interesting to me. Just the idea of, if you have a twinner, what if your twinner's insane? And if they somehow flip because they don't know what they're doing, and that's why we have serial killers in this world. That's why we have, you know what I mean? That kind of thing is creepy. But I just... Again, it gets really convoluted when he decides to tear into the universe. And it's like, well, how did you... So I was always really confused by that. How did he know that Wolf and Jack were at that pond and that Morgan Sloat just happened to be on the same place on the opposite side of the world? And how did he know to rip into the world there? Because Morgan Orus wasn't. And if Orus was there, all he would have had to do is possess him. So it never was clear on how he tracked them down to the farm in the other world.
Yeah, I don't know how they got to the same rest stop, but I think he saw them right before they flipped, so he did his world tearing thing to follow them. I thought that was what happened. But the world tearing thing still doesn't make sense, because he's plucking Morgan of Orus from wherever he is. To become him.
And that's my thing. So if he did that, okay, and now they're in the territories and he's Morgan of Orus, so when they flip, why didn't he just do it again?
What do you mean? Why didn't Jack just flip back?
Well, when Jack and Wolf flip into the real world, or into our world, why didn't Morgan of Orus then tear into our world and become Morgan Sloat and pull Morgan Sloat? Do you know what I mean? He's in the same place.
I have no clue.
It's really convoluted and weird, and maybe someone can school us.
Yeah, maybe you guys have the answers.
Talisman scholar out there can, put us in our place.
Question number 7,000. Who is Snowball? Is he Speedy? Is he a third twinner? Who is this other man that plays the guitar in the parking lot that's
Snowball.
like maybe Speedy?
Isn't Snowball the dog from The Simpsons?
I don't
Or the
think
cat.
I'm not sure that character, the way I chose to view it was that character outside the mall playing the guitar was not connected in any way to Speedy or Parkus, and that was Jack feeling so lonely and so lost, and that he was basically projecting onto this man.
I have to read it again, but I feel like the book makes a stance and is like he knew it was actually
No,
Speedy.
you're right. I
Yeah.
think you're right. I'm just saying that
You're just trying to.
I was trying to backpedal.
because I started thinking, I'm like, wait, is this Speedy? And I'm just like, I know, but then I started thinking it's actually kind of really sad and kind of sweet if it's just like Jack needs some guidance in this moment because Wolf just keeps freaking out everywhere he goes, and he sees that this man playing the guitar is like, maybe I can, like, by sheer force of will, make this manifest as Speedy,
Well, and I thought
and that's something a 12-year-old might do.
I did think the same thing as you when they showed up. I thought, maybe this is Speedy's twinner, and then it wasn't. And
And if it was, why would he be in this world and look
Exactly.
different? Because that's impossible.
yeah. And then again, that early on, I wasn't sure if Speedy was really like a human or if he was like this otherworldly being that was kind of guiding him. So I thought, maybe he's just like jumping into different people along the way.
If you're going to write a book where people have counterparts that look different from them in another world, you can't just throw a third thing in there that like may or may not be a
it's
main
very
character.
true.
But
It's
that's
very
why after it was a little confusing, I did think like what Randall I did think maybe he's just so, and that was a moment where I kind of liked where Jack was not perfect and he was breaking down and kind of just projecting. He
but
does the
Speedy
same thing later on.
also says
though.
later, like, sometimes I'm just a man who travels with a guitar in parking lots.
Oh,
like, he
yeah.
makes a direct
Says that he
reference
is.
to it.
So
Well, then why didn't he do more to help him in that moment?
exactly that is confusing because I don't know. Again, this is why this is in the misery section of this podcast.
All right. Okay.
Although I will say that I thought that I like that section, but it just is very confusing. Like, I like Jack's little, like, the way he responds to it, the emotions that it brings out, the sense of despair it brings out, but it is just very, and I just hate the book for like being like, no, that was Speedy. That was Speedy.
Because it kind of explains the way Jack reacts when he sees Wolf's brother in the future. When he thinks, like, for a split second, and he even knows it's probably not Wolf, but he jumps in his arms.
Yeah.
And, and it reminds me, this kid is just a 12-year-old kid that's just been through a lot,
Yeah.
But when they do blatantly reference that, no, that was probably Speedy.
I forgot about that line
what?
yet at the end. Ugh.
Okay,
it seems
finally,
weird.
I think this is my final misery question. What was the deal with the creatures at the boarding school? Because they weren't twinners, it didn't sound like. They were
Right.
just like distorted versions of the kids and the teachers because the boundary between worlds was so thin that that could happen.
So I think that was my takeaway with each of these bad places. Was that you kind of saw because even Elroy is in our world, but he's kind of werewolfish and has the razor sharp teeth and stuff, and you're like, so in these really awful places.
He doesn't have a twinner. He's just traveling. Elroy doesn't have a twinner, or does he?
Didn't Elroy manifest as the monster? So I think he just travels because
it's just him.
He's like a mercenary.
Okay, so in that sense, maybe there are monsters with no twinner that when they traverse, they're like Jack. They just are analog there in one world, they're in the next.
But these aren't monsters. It's like the headmaster becomes like a dog thing, and then later in the book, he like when Jack touches the talisman, he like is running around like a dog again. Like they don't have twinners, but they're monsters for a little bit.
Well, yeah, like
It's
Etheridge
confusing.
has like one giant long tooth.
Yes.
I always
half
remembered
his
that.
face is dead.
Yeah. It's freaky. It just feels like King writing horror. He's like, I feel like writing some horror. And it's like, it doesn't really have a strong justification in the world.
So the one like student / the one that's yelling up at them like, bring out
That's
your passport.
Etheridge, yeah.
Etheridge. Is he supposed to have always been at Thayer? And if so, why didn't Richard ever notice that he looks like a monster?
No, he doesn't.
He
It was a
doesn't.
change. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't look like that.
Because
That's even more.
but he
they
doesn't
start-
have a twinner.
Yeah, they start like going back and forth. Maybe, I mean, but are you sure that that's not his twinner? Like, could it be?
No, because when twinners come over, they look like you. They don't look like themselves.
But didn't they travel over like when the monsters started coming out? Like, weren't they in the territories during that?
Well, so here's the thing. It would be okay, and like if they had said in some of the most evil places in the world is where it's like a thinny, like some of that world bleeds into our world,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
vice versa.
I think
and,
that is
and
what
they
it is.
established that later on, obviously with Black Hotel, but they don't really say that's happening, do they? Because then I would have just bought it. I would have been like, oh,
the
some of them
question
are
is
over
just
here.
like, are they mutating or are these twinners? And it's not really answered.
yeah,
I think as our world starts to break down, or Richard's world as he knows it starts to break down, these things start taking on more of the form of which they are in the territories.
So
it's
they are
just
twinners.
not. It's not their twinner. I just think they start to actually kind of they almost bleed into this world, like their twinner starts to bleed into their world, kind of like the ripping, but they maintain who they are because it's like a weak point. I'm really if I have to go this length
Yeah.
to explain this, it's a problem.
Yeah,
But I will
also,
say-
why didn't he, like, that whole thing where he's like, let's just hunker down in this dorm for Richard to finally realize that this is real? Like, what the fuck was
That's
that?
such
Like,
a
get
bizarre-
out of there.
I know, that's
Like,
such a bizarre
And why
choice.
aren't they trying to break into the dorm? They
Yep.
wait for these weird bugs to do it instead of, like, just
Well,
going
that-
in there?
And that see again when they were talking about, oh well, like I feel like I need to have Richard with me, and all that stuff. At that point I was thinking maybe maybe Richard's the reason why. Maybe they can't get too close to Richard for
Maybe.
some reason, or they know that Morgan will like kill them because Morgan wants Richard to be alive, but then Morgan seems to not give a shit
and they're
about
just
Richard
taking
later
naps.
on.
Richard's like, I'm gonna take a nap. And Jack's
Yeah,
like,
it's-
okay, go.
it's
Take a nap.
Very strange. Were there any other like
miseries.
Well,
I'll just say this. I've read a section that I started laughing at because it was so overwrought. And I was like, why are you doing this to us?
Oh, this is another good use for this section is like bad writing.
Yes.
Because Pound Cake is more sex and fart writing.
Yes, that's very true. So you remember when he sees the flying men?
Yeah.
And I think the seeds of a beautiful moment are there. Like he's trying to create a beautiful moment where Jack sees this beautiful placid scene play out before him, and it's really lovely. But then they just keep describing how beautiful the flying men are, and it goes on for so long. And I'm just going to give you an example here.
That's just King, baby.
I was literally like in bed reading it and laughing because it wouldn't stop. But it's basically the men flying out there. This is on 230 of the Berkeley edition. The men flying out there did not give that sense of effortlessness. They seemed to be expending prodigious amounts of energy to stay in the air, and Jack felt with sudden certainty that it hurt. The way some of the calisthenics and phys ed, leg lifts, or halfway sit-ups, for instance, hurt. No pain, no gain, Coach would roar if someone had the nerve to complain. And now something else occurred to him. The time his mother had taken him with her to see her friend Myrna, who was a real ballet dancer, practicing in the loft of a dance studio on Lower Wilshire Boulevard. Myrna was part of a ballet troupe, and Jack had seen her and other dancers perform. His mother often made him go with her, and it was mostly boring stuff, like church or Sunrise Semester on TV. But he had never seen Myrna in practice, never that close up. He had been impressed and a little frightened by the contrast between seeing ballet on stage, where everyone seemed to either glide or mince effortlessly on the tips of their pointes, Pointes in italics, and seeing it from less than 5 feet away with harsh daylight. Why are we going into this? And then it keeps going. Like, their faces ran with sweat. Their leotards were wet with sweat. The room, as large and airy as it was, stank of sweat. Sleek muscles trembled and fluttered on the nervous edge of exhaustion. Corded tendons stood out like insulated cables. Throbbing veins popped out on foreheads and necks. Except for the choreographers clapping and angry, hectoring shouts, the only sounds were the thrup thud of ballet dancers on point moving across the floor and harsh, agonized panting for breath. Jack had suddenly realized that these dancers were not just earning a living, they were killing themselves. Most of all, he remembered their expressions, and it keeps going.
It's just, he's trying to make a point about like the physical price you pay for beauty, but
Yeah.
But it's like, and it's just like I thought we were talking about the flying men, and I get it that you're drawing these illusions, but why? It's like it goes on for. I just put a note in my Lord. I just wrote "Good Lord" with this page number.
also that brings me another point, like a plot device that's never explained, which is he comes back and the tower is destroyed, and we never learn, is it actually because you flipped and that created some sort of seismic activity? Or, as I think Speedy implies, or Snowball, or whoever, who the fuck ever, he says maybe it wasn't you. Maybe someone else came along and destroyed that to make you think it was you. Maybe it was Morgan.
I think when he tells him that, it's just to. I think that he's absolutely responsible. All the flipping, I think that he's absolutely doing all these things. I think he just tells him that to like ease his mind a little bit. But I think that he really is.
You think it's the flipping that killed all those dudes?
Well, I don't know. I don't think he. I mean, I think. Yeah. I think that his flipping is causing these things to happen because he's making these big changes and causing these things.
But either way, it's never really brought up again unless he worries about it a little bit later. But we never actually see another like collapse.
It's true.
Or something.
It's true.
I will liken it to the whole like God works in mysterious ways. Like sometimes things have to happen, terrible things, and you don't know why. But maybe it's because something else is being saved down the line.
It seemed like they really wanted to introduce it as like a big part of Jack's journey, and Jack's struggling with whether or not to flip it. It just goes away.
Yeah. Well, that's a sorry. Jogged the King's Dominion in my head. Okay. Anywho,
any other miserable moments of the Talisman?
I think so.
Those were all my burning questions.
I think
listeners, please do feel free to offer your interpretation of the things we're confused about. I would love to hear them.
Yes. It's I mean, it's tough when you're building a brand new world, and even when you have 1,000 pages
with another person.
Yeah, with another person, there's just so many. You introduce so many things, and you just never know. I mean, I was writing a play once years ago, and I kind of created this other world, and then I suddenly realized that by doing so, I had to build basically a mythology and a logic for that world, and I just cut it immediately. Cut it because I'm like, it's too much work. So let's move on because now. The fog is gathering at our feet. The creaking of the cemetery doors are opening. Doors. The gates.
They could have doors.
They're creaking open.
Something's creaking.
The doors of the mausoleum are opening.
I hear some whipping.
There's maybe some whipping going on. And you know what that means, listeners? It means that we're going into the cemetery.
What's the bottom of the truth?
Well, sometimes that is better. The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back. It may look like that person, but it ain't that person. Because whatever lives in the ground beyond that cemetery ain't human at all.
So, surprisingly, I found there to be a lot more spooky parts in this book than I remembered there being.
Yeah.
I think it's a really strong... I think there's a lot of really strong moments of horror
I've
here.
got a big cemetery plot.
Well, do you want to kick us off with one?
Sure. Page 162. I've got the trees whispering to Jack, "Our boy, our boy," and it just it reminds you.
They're like our boy.
Yeah,
our boy.
It reminds me. It's almost like they knew they lost Jason and now he's back or something. Or maybe they killed Jason.
Wait, are these the trees that try to grab him?
Yeah, the trees that are like alive, and it just reminds me of Evil Dead. Like the trees are alive. Ash, they know.
When I was reading about, I was doing my research. There was talk about how they were clearly influenced by Evil Dead in that moment, and King was obviously such a big fan of Evil Dead because he helped get it made.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's definitely echoes.
Yeah, it's wild.
Kind of love it.
I thought there was a lot of cool spooky stuff in the Oatly tap, but the part that really freaked me out was when the phone started ringing and just Jack sort of knew that they were calling for him, and that was a really creepy moment. And I just love. So I'm just going to read this section on page 181 of the Berkeley edition.
You forget it every time.
I know. I always forget. Oatly tap, he said into that deadly blackness, and his mouth went numb. The voice that came out of the phone was the cracked, rasping croak of something long dead, some creature which could never be seen by the living. The sight of it would drive a living person insane or strike him dead with frost etchings on his lips and staring eyes blinded by cataracts of ice. Jack, this scabrous, rattling voice whispered up out of the earpiece, and his face went numb, and the way it did when you needed to spend a heavy day in the dentist chair and the guy needled you up with a little too much Novocaine. You get your ass back home, Jack. From far away, a distance of light years, it seemed he could hear his voice repeating, Oatley Tap, is anyone there? Hello? 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 Cold, so cold. His throat was numb. He drew breath and his lungs seemed to freeze. Soon the chambers of his heart would ice up and he would simply drop dead. That chilly voice whispered, bad things can happen to a boy alone on the road, Jack. Ask anybody. He hung up the phone with a quick, clumsy reaching gesture. He pulled his hand back and then stood looking at the phone. Was it the asshole, Jack? Lori asked, and her voice was distant, but a little closer than his own voice had seemed a few moments ago. The world was coming back. On the handset of the payphone, he could see the shape of his hand outlined in a glittering rime of frost. As he looked, the frost began to melt and run down the black plastic. I think that's such a neat, creepy little scene.
Yeah.
God knows how those physics work.
I know,
Twitters
right?
and
Oh my
Well, I had a moment
yeah.
there. I'm like, well, who is this talking? Like, because it's not Elroy, I don't think. Maybe it's supposed to be, but the icy quality is not something we associate with Elroy. The icy quality isn't something we associate with anybody else in this world.
Yeah.
And then, you know who I wonder if it is Ruel. Because they say, or Rule, because they say, because he says, like, if you saw this, it would drive you insane. He sees Elroy, it doesn't drive him insane. It's just a goat man.
Well,
but
it's
then
not
when
just
he's-
a goat man.
But when he sees Rule, though, that's something that would drive a person insane.
It's also not something that he only deals with because even Lori says, that phone's got ghosts. So it's like this weird.
She doesn't hear it, though.
No, but it's just kind of like maybe other people have had a weird experience with that phone.
Yeah.
Maybe it's weird. Like again, if we're saying there's like a weird Thinny-esque quality to some of these evil places, maybe that's a weird transmitter to the other
I
world.
did keep
kind of
thinking we
thing.
were going to see the Territories version of the Oatley Tap, and it'd be like a terrible pub.
It's just a bad pub.
Yeah.
It's not like scary. It's just
didn't
like
he flip over and see Oatley? I can't remember.
no, but he says he's too scared.
Yeah,
to
he's
because
too
he thinks
scared
that it's
to.
scary. And then that's why that makes the sunlight flip even more terrifying because you're like, oh, we're actually going to see finally what might be on the other side.
I had my first cemetery moment on page 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's when he's watching a gull, and the gull has a clam. The clam had cracked open like an egg, and Jack saw raw meat inside, still twitching, or perhaps that was his imagination. Don't want to see this. But before he could turn away, the gull's yellow-hooked beak was pulling at the meat, stretching it like a rubber band, and he felt his stomach knot into a slick fist. In his mind, he could hear that stretched tissue screaming. Nothing coherent, only stupid flesh crying out in pain. He tried to look away from the seagull again, and he couldn't. The gull's beak opened, giving him a brief glimpse of dirty pink gullet. The clam snapped back into its cracked shell, and for a moment the gull was looking at him, its eyes a deadly black, confirming every horrible truth. Fathers die, mothers die, uncles die, even if they went to Yale and look as solid as bank walls in their three-piece Seville Row suits. Kids die too, maybe. And at the end, all there may be is the stupid, unthinking scream of living tissue.
That is good. That would be a good WordPresser of the gods, too. I like that writing. Mac, what else spooked you?
We already kind of mentioned it, but I was creeped out by the tunnel sequence.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Page 181, when he just doesn't know what was in there, if it was Elroy or not. Kind of creeped me out. And, King loves those tunnels. And
He really does. They're scary.
But it's scary. And I just love the idea of standing in the dark, hearing something that could be a foot away from you, and just not knowing what it is. Like your mind starts playing tricks. You're seeing shadows, but it's already pitch black, so you don't know if what you're seeing is what you're seeing. I don't know.
Also,
It's
he initially
creepy.
thinks it's a dog, and then is like relieved, and then it's like, oh wait, definitely not a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna jump ahead to the slave camp because it's so freaky to me.
Sure.
Page 407 of the Berkeley edition. Remember that time. Wolf held him absently, his eyes wide and glowing a steady orange. His face was a grue of dismay and fear. It's a pit, Jackie. It looked like the huge open pit molybdenum mine he had visited.
Molybdenum.
Okay. He had visited with his mother when they had vacation in Colorado 3 winters ago. They had gone to Vail to ski, but one day it had been too bitterly cold for that, and so they had taken a bus tour to the Continental Minerals. Say it.
Oh, molybdenum.
Mine outside the little town of Sidewinder. Hey, Sidewinder.
Oh, ooh.
King's Dominion. It looks like Gehenna to me, Jacko, she had said, and her face, she looked out the frost-bordered bus window, had been dreamy and sad. I wish they'd shut those places down, every one of them. They're pulling fire and destruction out of the earth. It's Gehenna, all right. Thick, choking vines of smoke rose from the depths of the pit. Its sides were veined with thick loads of some poisonous green metal. It was perhaps half a mile across. A road leading downwards spiraled its inner circumference. Jack could see figures toiling both upward and downward upon this road. It was a prison of some kind, just as the Sunlight Home was a prison, and these were the prisoners and their keepers. The prisoners were naked, harnessed in pairs to carts like rickshaws, carts filled with huge chunks of that green, greasy-looking ore. Their faces were drawn in rough woodcuts of pain. Their faces were blackened with soot. Their faces ran with thick red sores. The guards toiled beside them, and Jack saw with numb dismay that they were not human. In no sense at all could they be called human. They were twisted and humped. Their hands were claws. Their ears pointed like Mr. Spock's. Why, they're gargoyles, he thought. All those nightmare monsters on those cathedrals in France. Mom had a book, and I thought we were going to have to see every one in the whole country, but she stopped when I had a bad dream and wet the bed. Did they come from here? Did somebody see them here? Somebody from the Middle Ages who flipped over saw this place and thought he'd had a vision of hell? But this was no vision. The gargoyles had whips, and over the rumbles of the wheels and the sounds of rocks cracking steadily under some steady baking heat, Jack heard their pop and whistle. As he and Wolf watched, one team of men paused near the very top of the spiral road, their heads down, tendons on their necks standing out in harsh relief, their legs trembling with exhaustion. The monstrosity who was guarding them, a twisted creature with a breech clout twisted around its legs and a patchy line of stiff hair growing from the scant flesh over the knobs of its spine, brought its whip down first on one and then on the other, howling at them in a high, screeching language that seemed to drive silver nails of pain into Jack's head. Jack saw the same silver beads of metal that had decorated Osmond's whip, and before he could blink, the arm of one prisoner had been torn open and the nape of the other's neck lay in ruined flaps. The men wailed and leaned forward even farther, their blood the deepest color in the yellowish murk. The thing screeched and gibbered, and its grayish plated right arm flexed as it whirled the whip over the slaves' heads. With a final staggering jerk, they yanked the cart up and onto the level. One of them fell forward onto his knees, exhausted, and the forward motion of the cart knocked him sprawling. One of the wheels rolled over his back. Jack heard the sound of the downed prisoner's spine as it broke. It sounded like a track referee's starter gun. The gargoyle shrieked with rage as the cart tottered and then fell over, dumping its load onto the split, cracked, arid ground at the top of the pit. He reached the fallen prisoner in 2 lunging steps and raised his whip. As he did, the dying man turned his head and looked into Jack Sawyer's eyes. It was Ferd Janklow. Wolf saw too. They groped for each other and flipped back.
Ferd. At least we get Janklow,
so
right?
Sad.
But that's
so
a
sad.
terrifying realization, and it's creepy.
At least he's dying. Good God.
Yeah, I like the idea though that someone might have flipped and seen these things, and then that's the reason we have gargoyles in our world.
Well,
I
it's
also
such-
think it's
yeah.
also a little bit of a kind of like a mini Balrog, another with like the giant gargoyle with the whip.
Well, it's such a childlike version of hell in a way.
Yeah.
And I think that almost scares me more. That very much that whole idea of like monsters whipping you. It's like hot and dry.
And it's real.
And it's and just like and then rocks everywhere and then just like this casual cruelty, like the cart just rolling over a kid's back, snapping a spine. It's just like it's such torturous. Like every aspect of it is really dark, and it just reminds me of the kind of very simple, basic vision of hell I had as a child.
Mel, do you have another?
I have a
baddie?
couple I won't read. Just like I thought there were some good death scenes, like Jerry Bledsoe.
Oh,
his death. You can read. Okay, you want to read his letter?
It's just the description. It's really short. It just says, Jerry Bledsoe's rotted corpse still swayed upright back and forth before the devastated panel. Thousands of volts poured through his body, twitching with regular surges, snapping it back and forth in a steady pulse. All the handyman's body hair and most of his clothes had fried off, and his skin had become a cooked blotchy gray. His eyeglasses, a solidifying lump of brown plastic, covered his nose like a poultice. I love the glasses. I love the glasses melted into a ball, just like on his face. Like, ugh. Disgusting.
I love when Wolf breaks Heck's hand.
Yes.
He just like envelops it and squeezes, and you just hear it breaking and breaking. And I love when Wolf does his rampage. There's like the kid that he rips his back open, and you see his spine. For a second.
That part freaked me out when I was a kid.
Yeah.
No, I have because I loved Sonny Singer because he's such an asshole. And when
God, he's awful.
I know, and then so like when Wolf comes for him. Sonny pointed the 45 at him and pulled the trigger. There was a dry, impotent click. Sonny's wet grin faltered. No, he said mildly, and pulled the trigger again and again. As Wolf reached for him, he threw the gun and tried to run around Gardner's big desk. The pistol bounced off Wolf's skull, and with a final failing burst of strength, Wolf leaped across Sunlight Gardner's desk after Sonny, scattering everything that had been there. Sonny backed away, but Wolf was able to grab the arm. And I love as Sonny screams, no, you better not. You'll go back in the box. I'm a big man around here. And then Wolf twisted Sonny's arm. There was a ripping sound, the sound of a turkey drumstick being torn from the crooked bird by an overenthusiastic child. Suddenly, Sonny's arm was in Wolf's big front paw. Sonny staggered away, blood jetting from his shoulder. Jack saw a wet, white knob of bone. He turned away and was violently sick. I just love that.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Like, watching those, I know they're, like, I just love that you brought up their children earlier, like these teenage boys. And I just love, like, but it's like their deaths are so fucking fun.
They're so satisfying. That when he grabs his fist, it's and just starts like I think there's a scene in Fright Night when he goes to hit Jerry Dandridge and he grabs his whole fist and just starts clenching, and you can hear the cracking, and that's all. And I just fingers cracking and just the fist breaking. Oh, I also love when Wolf he puts his arm up with the cast on to shield himself, and Wolf just bites right through the cast and takes off the rest of whatever his stumpy arm is, and it's just like, Jesus. It's really, really intense.
I want to skip all the way ahead because everything in the Blasted Lands is scary.
Yes.
Creepy.
I had the trees highlighted where, let's see here. What he had taken for a reddish variety of sand was a loose, powdery soil. It looked as though a man would sink in it up to his ankles, if not his knees. From this starved, dry soil grew the wretched trees. Looked at directly, these were much as they had appeared by night. So stunted they seemed to be straining over in an attempt to flee back under their own coiling roots. This was bad enough for rational Richard anyhow. But when you saw one of these trees obliquely out of the side of your eye, then you saw a living creature in torment. The straining branches were arms thrown up over an agonized face caught in a frozen scream. As long as Jack was not looking directly at the trees, he saw their tortured faces in perfect detail, the open O of the mouth, the staring eyes and drooping nose, the long agonized wrinkles running down the cheeks. They were cursing, pleading, howling at him. Their unheard voices hung in the air like smoke. Jack groaned. Like all the Blasted Lands, these trees had been poisoned. That's on 467 of the Viking edition.
Man, I love all those descriptions, and like the idea that there's like those little ponds, but the fish in them are way
huge,
too big.
And they're deep.
Yeah, that it goes deep is like such a freaky idea to me.
The trees, I just keep coming back to the trees, but on page 749 of the pocketbooks, it says, there's just a little paragraph where he says, as he passed by on the other side of the road, Jack glanced at their coiling roots and saw half embedded in the earth through which they wove a small bleached skeleton, once a boy of 8 or 9, still wearing a moldering green and black plaid shirt. It's just like, these trees are killing everything.
Well,
what is the deal?
The other thing that freaked me out
trees?
in the Blasted Lands was just the sense that the heads peering over the horizon.
Yeah.
I love that. Freaks me out. Like, Jack looked up sharply at the horizon, imagining that he had momentarily seen the round shape of a head peering over it, and then he had another of those shocks of a sudden displacement, similar to that the Loch Ness monster or whatever it was had given him. How could a head peer over the horizon, for God's sake? Because that's so freaky to me.
Yes.
Like these big round heads, and it just reminds me of, like, I don't know, there's like some painting or something, I can't remember what it is, but it's like there's like a famous painting or cartoon or drawing or something of like a giant like looking over the horizon with its hands and like looking at somebody. It's something that I just remember vaguely in my head. Maybe somebody can help. But
all
like,
I can think of is like the poster for Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the head rising up over.
It's just super freaky to me.
Sorry, did you have one?
No, go ahead.
The moment it's earlier on when Jack's actually taken up in the shed for days and he just loses track of time. And like I'm very claustrophobic, so I'm glad that little moment goes by real quick. He just kind of was like, oh, and then the day was over and I was out. That I was like, oh god, because if we had to spend like chapters and chapters, which is par for the course of the King, in that little space, I would have just freaked out. Yeah, I would not have been able to handle that.
I lost my shit when they're on the raft and he looks under the water, which is
Yes.
on page 545 of my book. He looked up over the front of the raft as soon as it dipped again into a trough. The broad gray back of something surely too large to be a mere fish was sinking beneath the surface. A shark? Jack was uneasily conscious of his 2 legs fluttering out behind him in the water. He ducked his head under, afraid he'd see a long cigar-shaped stomach with teeth sweeping toward him. He did not see that shape, not exactly, but what he saw astounded him. The water, which appeared now to be very deep, was as full as an aquarium, though one containing no fish of normal size or description. In this aquarium, only monsters swam. Beneath Jack's legs moved a zoo of outsized, sometimes horrendously ugly animals. They must have been beneath him in the raft ever since the water had grown deep enough to accommodate them, for the water was crowded everywhere. The thing that had frightened the renegade wolves glided by 10 feet down, long as a southbound freight train. It moved upward as he watched. A film over its eyes blinked. Long whiskers trailed back from its cavernous mouth. It had a mouth like an elevator door, Jack thought. The creature glided past him, pushing Jack closer to the hotel with the weight of the water it displaced, and raised its dripping snout above the surface. Its furry profile resembled Neanderthal man's. That's like my worst nightmare. I know they're helping him, but I literally have nightmares about looking under the water and being like, oh no, there's 7,000 giant sea monsters under here.
The helpful horrors.
Well, there's one great chapter on page 558 of the Berkeley edition paperback. It's clearly just a section where they're like, hey, let's have fun. Let's come up with some horrific things that we would have seen in the blasted lands. Because it's before Richard woke up late afternoon, Jack saw, and then it's just a list of things that are all freaking terrifying. Let me see. Yeah, 3 board shacks, human habitations propped up over the thick dust on stilts, promising that somewhere out in that stinking poison wilderness, which was the blasted lands, other people schemed and hunted for food. A small leathery bird, featherless, with "this is a real territory's" touch, a bearded monkey-like face, and clearly delineated fingers protruding from the tips of its wings. Ugh. And worst of all, apart from what he thought he saw, 2 completely unrecognizable animals drinking from one of the black pools, animals with long teeth and human eyes, and forequarters like those of pigs, hindquarters like those of big cats. Their faces were matted with hair. As the train pulled past the animals, Jack saw that the testicles of the male had swollen to the size of pillows and sagged onto the ground. What had made such monstrosities? Nuclear damage, Jack supposed, and scarcely anything else had such power to deform nature. The creatures, themselves poisoned from birth, snuffled up the equally poisoned water and snarled at the little train as it went past. So it's just it's clearly them just kind of being like, man, let's indulge it. Let's go nuts.
Well, I love also the mention of the nuclear wasteland. They talk about early on how, when they flip the nuclear testing in the West, how that was probably a reason for that bled over or that caused something on the other side, and that created the blasted lands kind of. And I thought that was really very interesting and cool.
Shades of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, it's seriously though, it was very much like that and creepy.
Sorry, you go.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say when Mr. Dufresne and the creatures that we don't know what they are, when they start chasing them, I think that's pretty creepy. All I can mention is all I can imagine is the monsters from, Cycle of the Werewolf, the half-formed werewolves kind of just losing their minds and just chasing them through if I was Richard and I'd never seen anything like that, at least Jack's got a little bit of, he's seen some things, but if I was Richard and seen that for the first time, I probably would have acted like Richard did in that moment, just completely terrified.
There's some cool, kind of subtly creepy stuff in the school section. I'm going to jump to page 469 of the Berkeley edition. And so it's when Richard describes the new coach that came to the school, and it kind of lays out that the school is obviously corrupted to some degree. And I just love this. So they talk about bringing a new coach in, and Jack says, "Let me guess, the new guy didn't look like he had anything to do with sports." Richard lifted his chin, startled. "No," he said. "No, he didn't." He gave Jack a considering look. "He smoked all the time, and his hair was really long and greasy. He didn't look anything like a coach. He looked like somebody most coaches would like to step on, to tell you the truth. Even his eyes looked funny. I bet you he smokes pot." Richard tugged at his sweater. I don't think he knew anything about basketball. He didn't even make us practice our patterns. That's what we usually do after the warm-up period. We sort of ran around and threw baskets, and he shouted at us, laughing. Like kids playing basketball was the most ridiculous thing he'd seen in his whole life. You ever see a coach who thought sports was funny? Even the warm-up period was strange. He just said, okay, do push-ups, and smoked his cigarette. No count, no cadence, everybody just doing them by themselves. After that, it was, okay, run around a little bit. He looked really wild. I think I'm going to complain to Coach Frazier tomorrow. I just love that. Like, it's just like, super creepy to me. Like this like weird person brought in and not having any idea what sports even are, you know?
Yeah.
And being like, oh, this is ridiculous. You guys look like idiots.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Richard's illness was really scary. The whole progression of the boils. And then when he finds him in the hotel after leaving him there and there are bugs coming out of the boils and going down his face. You're like, oh, Richard's annoying, but he doesn't deserve that.
He
shit.
doesn't. He doesn't. It's disgusting. Or that some of the people he runs into at the end.
In Point Venuti or whatever.
Yeah, the woman
really
that's
creepy.
wandering around.
Oh, yeah.
Or the guy with the
Description of
huge
her.
erection.
Yes.
Yeah.
So dark.
She's saying like "sweet baby Jason" and stuff like that. And you're dead. You're dead now. It's like it gets really like heady there, or even like Morgan when he loses his mind at the end, he sticks his thumbs in his ears like really hard, like too hard. They say, and I'm like, oh, anything with ears like really creeps me out.
The first time that we really hear about Rule at all is when they're talking to Anders.
Yeah.
And Jack asks what Osmond/Sunlight's son looked like. And Anders just goes, skinny. One eye was afloat. That's all I can remember. My lord, the whipman's son was hard to see. The wolves seemed more afraid of him than of his father, although the son carried no whip. They said he was dim. Dim, Jack mused. Yes, it is their word for one who is hard to see, no matter how hard ye look for that one. Invisibility is impossible, so the wolves say, but one can make himself dim if only he knows the trick of it. Most wolves do, and this little whore son knew it too. So all I remember is how thin he was, and that floating eye, and that he was as ugly as black syphilitic sin. Anders paused. He liked to hurt things, little things. He used to take them under the porch, and I'd hear the most awful screams.
Creepy.
It's so creepy. I love that though, and like the idea that he's dim and like hard to see. I wish that was explored more.
Well, that's a total direct reference to the whole like Walter
Eyes of the
Dim.
Dragon.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think, if that is King bringing that over, and we'll go into this more King's Dominion, but that's just one of the many little nods to the midworld, I guess. Did you guys have anything else? That
I
was
have
scary?
one more
yeah.
because I find while I'm on the Rule train,
Rule.
just the description of Rule. Let me see here. Let me bring it up here. Okay. Rule Gardner, or whatever Rule was in this world, made a thick mewling sound and attempted to follow. Osmond reached out and hauled him back. His fingers, Jack saw, appeared to slide right into the monster boy's slat-like repulsive neck. Like, that's so disgusting. And then when he climbs into the train, let me see if I can find that little part here.
You know how his hand is like a tentacle?
Yes.
Are we meant to believe that that's what grabbed Richard when he like went into the closet that one time? Because he says it was like a tentacle.
Oh my God, I never made that connection.
Yeah.
That's super freaky if so. Okay, here it is. Rule now throwing one reedy leg over the side of the cab. It was slobbering, reaching for him, and the leg was writhing. It wasn't a leg at all. It was a tentacle. Jack raised the Uzi and fired. Half of the Rule thing's face sheared away like pudding. A flood of worms began to fall out of what was left. Rule was still coming, reaching for him with those webbed fingers. Richard shrieks, Osmond shrieks, merging, melting together into one. Heat like a branding iron against his leg, and suddenly he knew what it was. Even as Rule's hand squashed down on his shoulders, he knew. It was the coin Captain Farron had given him, the coin Anders had refused to take. And then... yeah, then when he slams it into his head, into Rule's like forehead, and he goes, in her name, you filthy aborted thing, Jack shouted, get you off the skin of this world. Rule and his father shrieked in harmony, Osmond a tenor verging on soprano, Rule a buzzing insectile bass. The coin slid into Rule's forehead like the tip of a hot poker into a tub of butter. A vile dark fluid, the color of overbrewed tea, ran out of Rule's head and over Jack's wrist. The fluid was hot. There were tiny tiny worms in it. They twisted and writhed on Jack's skin. He felt them biting. Nevertheless, he pressed the first two fingers of his right hand harder, driving the coin further into the monster's head. I just love that. It's so
firing
gruesome.
on all cylinders.
I know,
He's like,
man.
what's the
know.
grossest way I could make this thing die?
That's just what makes me wish that we had seen Rule more earlier. Like, really, if he's so scary, and if people are more scared of the kid than Osmond, then what is this? Why? Yeah. And so I love that sequence, and it's like I just love that whole sort of action sequence at the base.
It gets nuts there, yeah.
Just them gunning down the wolves with Uzis and then killing
grenades.
Yeah, like blowing up Elroy and then like killing Rule and everything.
If you want to see more Rule, I believe that's the name of Kevin Pollak's brownie in Willow.
Jesus Christ. Get out of here with that.
Oh,
wait,
man.
Kevin Pollak? Kevin Pollak's in Willow?
Yeah, he's one of the brownies. He's one of the two main brownies. He's the one with the rat hat.
What the fuck is a brownie?
It's like a little
like a
pixie,
type of fairy.
little type of fairy.
It is.
Hey,
I know,
listen, I'm just trying to marry this podcast to our Star Wars podcast where they have Willow Watch. Anywho, so
I think it's time to leave. Is it time to leave the cemetery? Are we all thoroughly?
I think we're thoroughly scared,
creeped out,
jittering in our pants and
Ew,
things.
what? Jittering in our pants?
Well, let's pull up the setup to the computer and put on our eyeglasses because it's time to read what's on the word processor of the gods.
And we're gonna make a new rule. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing. Whether you don't hear me typing, what the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. Now, do you think you can handle that?
Yeah.
Fine. Why don't you start right now and get the fuck out of here?
Hello, welcome to Word Processor of the Gods, the section where you guys are probably ready for this since we were doing a lot of complaining earlier, but where we highlight some of the best written sections of the book, although I think we read a few of them just in the last section because some of the spooky stuff's maybe some of the best writing in this book.
I think we complained a bit, but Cemetery, we clearly liked a lot of this.
We got scared.
And you may have also noticed that Dan Mad Dog Caffrey disappeared during that last segment, and that's because after some research, we regret to inform you that his twinner has died, so he's gone. He is not a single-natured person in this world. Just kidding. He had a personal emergency. He may be joining us a little bit later, but Texas, things are bigger in Texas, including emergencies. So.
We wish you all the best.
We wish you all the best of luck, Dan. And so we're going to talk about stuff that we thought was good writing. Who wants to start?
Oh, let's see. I don't know. What do you guys?
Well, okay.
What do you guys
my
got
absolute
here?
favorite part, which I would be surprised if you guys hadn't also included it, was when Wolf is in the box and starts to break free, and it begins his whole death and his rampage. I loved it. What was going on was simple enough. Wolf was going with the moon. He felt it happen as the patch of sun coming in through the ventilation square began to rise higher and higher as the quality of the light became reddish. It was too early to go with the moon. She was not fully pregnant yet, and it would hurt him. Yet it would happen, as it always happened to wolves eventually, in season or out of it, when they were pressed too long and too hard. Wolf had held himself in check for a long time because it was what Jackie wanted. He had performed great heroisms for Jack in this world. Jack would dimly suspect some of them, yet never come close to apprehending their incredible depth and breadth. But now he was dying, and he was going with the moon, and because the latter made the former seem more than bearable, almost holy and surely ordained, Wolf went in relief and in gladness. It was wonderful not to have to struggle anymore. His mouth suddenly deep with teeth.
That's awesome.
I love it. And I love when it acknowledges, like, this wolf did so much more than anyone was even capable of, and Jack is never even going to understand how much he sacrificed.
Yeah. No. We were talking earlier about when we could see those moments of vulnerability in Jack were always really powerful. And there was one on page 141 after he's, kind of his early trips on the road, and he ends up sleeping on the floor of a shed, and it's really dirty, and he's really dirty, and he's just really lonely. And I love the way that this section captures it. So, while searching for socks, his hand encountered something slim and hard. Jack pulled it out and saw it was his toothbrush. At once, images of home and safety and rationality, all the things a toothbrush could represent, rose up and overwhelmed him. There was no way that he could beat these emotions down or turn them aside this time. A toothbrush was a thing meant to be seen in a well-lighted bathroom, a thing to be used with cotton pajamas on the body and warm slippers on the feet. It was nothing to come upon in the bottom of your knapsack in a cold, dark tool shed on the edge of a gravel pit in a deserted rural town whose name you did not even know. Loneliness raged through him. His realization of his outcast status was now complete. Jack began to cry. He did not weep hysterically or shriek as people do when they mask rage with tears. He cried in the steady sobs of one who has discovered just how alone he is, and is apt to remain for a long time yet. He cried because all safety and reason seemed to have departed from the world. Loneliness was here, a reality. But in this situation, insanity was also too much of a possibility. Jack fell asleep before the sobs had entirely run their course. He slept curled around his pack, naked except for clean underpants and socks. The tears had cut clean courses down his dirty cheeks, and he held his toothbrush loosely in one hand.
That reminds me of being homesick at sleepaway camp.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, you guys kind of killed it.
You have nothing?
Well, I had the Wolfen box.
Sorry.
I had a lot of mine were the cemetery descriptions, but Randall read everything. I had a couple of like lines here and there. There was I don't really. And I'd have to like search. I'd have to search.
That's
for
fine.
it
we
now,
got other
it's-
stuff.
Yeah, we got more.
We
I
kind
like,
of just weirdly talked about it in some of the other portions here.
I like when he's reminiscing about Uncle Morgan and kind of seeing how sinister he is when his father can't. So like on 162, Morgan's saying, "Oh, I've learned a few things, Phil, but really, I'll never get over being grateful to you for showing all that to me." The two syllables of grateful filled with smoke and the sound of breaking glass. And then a couple pages later on 166, when the boy looked into Uncle Morgan's face, he saw calculations sink into his skin, slide underneath his jolly fat man's cheeks like a snake beneath a rock. He looked like Richard Sloat's daddy again, like good old Uncle Morgan, who always gave spectacular Christmas and birthday presents. Like good old sweaty Uncle Morgan, so easy not to notice. But what had he looked like before? Like a human earthquake, like a man crumbling apart over the fault line behind his eyes, like something all wound up and waiting to explode. "How about a little ice cream on the way home, Jack?" Uncle Morgan said to him.
I've got a good... This is when he's with Wolf, and it's on page 312 of my edition, and I just love it because this is a really simple little section, but I just find it really lovely because I relate to it, and it's just such a nice moment of quiet. But, so it says... He went around to the side of the shed, a straight, slim boy wearing jockey shorts, unlaced sneakers, and an open shirt. He peed for what seemed like a very long time indeed, looking up at the sky as he did so. It was one of those misleading nights which sometimes come to the Midwest in October and early November, not so long before winter comes down with a cruel iron snap. It was almost tropically warm, and the mild breeze was like a caress. Overhead floated the moon, white and round and lovely. It cast a clear and yet eerily misleading glow over everything, seeming to simultaneously enhance and obscure. Jack stared at it, aware that he was almost hypnotized, not really caring. I just love that, being somebody who's grown up in the Midwest and obviously living in Chicago, we know what the cold iron snap of winter feels like. So just that, I know exactly what that moment is like, and I just found it really lovely. So... Any others you guys have? Because I've got one.
I really did like the moment where he becomes God and is inhabiting everything in every world, and it's overwhelming. It's a very long section. I won't read it, but that's an incredible section. We had talked about food, like King with food in
you might have something. I had a little something there too.
Page 546. And I think maybe this was a Straub section, because as we talked, King, he's not always one to talk about how good the food is, but I love this. So when they're with Anders gave them thick, sweet slices of bread clearly made from the grain growing around the depot, kebabs of tender sections of meat, and plump, juicy, unfamiliar vegetables, a spicy pink juice that Jack for some reason thought of as papaya, though he knew it was not. Richard chewed in a happy trance, the juice running down his chin until Jack wiped it off for him. And then there's more later. Let's see here. Anders' presumably limited stock of food, but the old man kept nipping behind the counter where he or his father before him had installed a small wood-burning stove and returning with yet more food: corn muffins, calf's foot jelly, things that looked like chicken legs but tasted of what? Frankincense and myrrh? Flowers? The taste fairly exploded over his tongue, and he thought that he too might begin to drool. The three of them sat around a little table in the warm and mellow room. At the end of the meal, Anders almost shyly brought forth a heavy beaker half filled with red wine. Feeling as if he were following someone else's script, Jack drank a small glassful.
Sounds so good.
I know.
Earlier in the book, when he's in the territories for the first time and he goes to that little market and they're selling meat and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so good. Like one of the descriptions is everywhere there was the smell of roasting meat, it seemed. You saw vendors slowly turning joints of beef over charcoal fires, both small and ambitious. You saw apprentices laying thick slices of what looked like pork on slabs of homemade bread, taking them to buyers. And then I love the guy selling it. He says, "Fine meats, fine meats, fine." The big man broke off and looked down at Jack, his beetling brows drawing together over eyes that were small but not entirely stupid. "I hear the song your stomach is singing, my friend. If you have money, I'll take your trade and bless you to God in my prayers tonight. If you haven't, then get your stupid sheep's face out of here and go to the devil." I just love that. The way that these guys speak is great. I love it. But yeah, the descriptions of all the food is amazing. And that was another thing too. In the territories, everything was like, what do you think the territories smell like?
Well, clear air is like what he always says, but then the food is amazing.
Yeah, it's just like,
yeah,
I really want to go
the
there.
Earthiness, like I like when he describes when the talisman is healing his mother, and you kind of smell like sweetness, but it's also mixed with like that soil and earthiness of like something being born.
Yeah.
And then we get into a pound cake section, but
I've got that coming up. Yeah,
I like, this is my last one. I like this on page 368 of the Berkeley Books edition. I just like it because I relate to it, and it was like a little bit of truth in the middle of all this. But they're talking about Sunlight Gardener and this idea of confession that he does. So it says, before confession was over at 6 o'clock, almost everyone except Jack and Wolf had his hand up, hoping to relate some sin to those gathered. Several confessed petty theft, others told of stealing liquor and drinking until they threw up. There were, of course, many tales of drugs. Warwick called on them, but it was Sunlight Gardener they looked to for approval as they told and told and told. He's got them liking their sins, Jack thought, troubled. They love him. They want his approval, and I guess they only get it if they confess. Some of these sad sacks probably even make their crimes up. And that's just such a true moment for me, because I feel like a lot of times when you enter into some kind of and I hesitate to say like religion necessarily, but I think sometimes people love to sort of fetishize their pain,
or performative,
performative like oppression, you know what I mean? And really play up the ways in which they've been victimized in the world, as to me something that's such like a very, very true moment that I feel like he captures here. That's a unique part of human behavior, is sometimes in certain situations, in certain settings, we only feel like we can like get approval from somebody if we share, if we sort of fetishize how dark and fucked up our lives are.
I think it's definitely tied to religion, but also just in general. I think on social media and in life today, there's an economics of vulnerability.
Yes,
like,
it's a great way to put it.
And I hate it.
I know, I hate it too. Speaking of things we don't hate, it's time for a little pound cake.
Yum. After all you've been taught, everyone in bed, Mama, everything in the sin. Come to your closet and pray, ask to be forgiven. He's a nice boy, Mom. You like him. You really like him, Mama.
I love some pound cake, if I'm being honest. I'm really hungry. I'm ready for a big, hearty serving of the pound cake.
How about page 216? Just the mention of a club-like penis.
Just the mention of a club-like penis.
There's nothing to read there, but oh boy, I just wanted to kick that off. What else do you guys got? There's a
page
lot.
35. Speedy's got porn all over his office for
that was
some
so
reason.
creepy.
I know. Let me see here. Kind of catch the eye, don't it? Speedy said, and Jack remembered where he was. A Eurasian woman with her back to the camera tilted a heart-shaped rear and smiled at him over her shoulder. Yes, Jack thought. Real pretty place, Speedy said. I put that one up myself. All these here girls met me when I moved in. Didn't have the heart to rip them off the wall. They sort of do remind me of way back when, times when I was on the road. Jack looked up at Speedy startled, and the old man winked at him. It's like
that's like you're gonna get assaulted.
He's
like,
a child.
Awful.
Speedy.
Oh boy.
Speaking of which, on 219 of my Viking edition, this passage is so terrible for so many reasons. One is what actually happens in it, and two is I do get the sense that this is what King or Straub both actually believe. He's talking about getting in cars with pedophiles.
Oh boy.
These were annoyances a good-looking 12-year-old boy in Los Angeles simply learned to put up with. The way a pretty woman learns to put up with being groped occasionally on the subway. You eventually find a way to cope without letting it spoil your whole day. The deliberate passes, such as the one this Ferguson was making, were less of a problem than the sudden gropes from ambush. They could simply be shunted aside. At least in California they could. Eastern gays, especially out here in the sticks, apparently had a different way of dealing with rejection. So okay, we got a great equivalence of being gay to being a pedophile. Mm-hmm. We got the great, like, you should just learn to cope with being groped, like women do. There's so many layers of badness.
It's very
here.
bizarre. And along that, just like there's kind of a problematic description here on page 112. Get out, the chef screeched at them, and the voice emerging from that huge barrel chest was absurdly flute-like. It was the voice of a willowy gay giving a shoe clerk a piece of his mind. But there was nothing absurd about the fork. It looked deadly. But I just like a willowy gay.
Oh my god. He even makes a point when Osmond is introduced to be like, well, he was prancing like a gay man, but he wasn't a gay man.
Yes, exactly. Well, there's so much foppishness. And this is a really curious moment here on page 117, just a few pages later. Oh, wait, no, this is the Osmond bit. So here's what it is. Yet there was nothing swishy about this. Osmond was willowy. There's willowy again. Willowy and almost delicate, but Jack got no feeling of true homosexuality from the man.
No.
If there was that innuendo in his words, then Jack sensed intuitively that it was hollow. And it's just like true homosexuality is just a very strange phrase.
Oh boy.
Mac.
There's some other disgusting things, like page 467 of Pocketbooks. They talk about Roy Ottersfeld's milking the pimple at the end of his nose. It's like when he's not milking the pimple at the end of his nose. I was just like, oh,
milk that zit.
No, Jesus.
On page 350, when they're at the Sunlight home, this is after they get caught in the bathroom. Were they queering off, like Sonny said? Morton asked. Another wolf howl rose from the squat iron box, and both boys glanced toward it. And how? Roy said eagerly. I didn't exactly see it because I'm short, but Buster Oates was right up front, and he said that big retarded boy had him a wanger the size of an Akron fire plug. That's what he said. Jesus, Morton said respectfully, thinking perhaps of his own substandard wanger.
Wanger! I just love multiple uses of wanger.
There's a lot going on in that passage too, honestly.
Yes. There's a moment when he's at Oatley Tap where I don't know if this is Pound Cake necessarily, it just kind of made me laugh because it does paint sort of a gross portrait that I think conveys the horror of what Jack's dealing with. But Smokey sent him into the men's can a half an hour later. A middle-aged man with a Joe Pine haircut was standing woozily at one of the two ice-choked urinals, one hand braced against the wall, the other brandishing a huge uncircumcised penis.
Brandishing.
Oh my God.
I know, and I think it's just the way that it's phrased, but then it says a puddle of puke steamed between his spraddled work boots. Clean her up, kid, the man said, weaving his way back toward the door and clapping Jack on the back almost hard enough to knock him over. Man's got to make room any way he can, right? What else you guys got?
Page 756, the description of the woman wandering the streets.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, a naked woman so starved, Jack could have counted her ribs, twisted slowly and ceremoniously as a weather vane in the littered street before the shops. Above her pale body with its drooping breasts and mop of pubic hair, her face had been painted blazing orange. Jack stopped moving and watched the insane woman of the painted face and dyed hair raise her arms, twist her upper body as deliberately as one doing a Tai Chi movement, kick her left foot out over the fly-blown corpse of a dog. It's just like, it's just disgusting.
Thanks.
Like just the
guys.
descriptions there are just.
This is just I guess this is a fun time for Pound Cake. This is just them showing their dad credentials, like just being totally lame. So when Jack sees it's page 222, he's talking to the vendor, and he makes the vendor laugh, and the vendor goes, "A happy boy with a snappy mouth," the vendor said. "Come see me when you're older and bolder, my son. We'll take your mouth and head south and treble what we peddle." Jack giggled. This guy was better than a rap record by the Sugar Hill Gang. It's like, man. Hey Joe, what's the rap the kids are listening to these days?
They just Googled like rap groups.
I know, I love it.
I like the alligator woman on 490.
Oh yes.
It sprang back up and leaped at Richard's side of the train. It uttered its rough, powerful cry again, and this time it seemed to Richard that there was something hideously feminine in that cry. He pulled the trigger of the Uzi. Nothing happened. The clip was spent. The alligator thing ran with slow, clumsy, thudding determination. Its eyes sparkled with murderous fury and intelligence. The vestiges of breasts bounced on its scaly chest. Yeah, we really needed that. Thanks.
Oh, man.
So let's woman count in the Talisman. Freakish alligator woman with bouncing breasts. Orange face naked woman in the middle of the street. Woman with chains pierced between her breasts that talks to Jack. Lily, who's dying.
Lily and Laura.
And the prostitutes that yell at Jack from the cart near the beginning. Did I miss any woman? Oh, Lori, who loves being hit. Okay,
Lori,
there we go.
Yeah.
There's very much a Me Too kind of section. Page 262. Jack is talking about getting groped by men and stuff. He says he had been groped before, certainly in movie theaters mostly, but there had been the men's shop clerk.
That's terrifying.
In North, I know it's like he talks about it so casually.
Matter of fact,
he's like, of course he'd been groped. In movie theaters mostly.
And there had been the men's shop clerk in North Hollywood who had cheerfully offered to blow him in a changing booth. And when Jack told him no thanks, the clerk said, "Fine, now try on the blue blazer, okay?" These were annoyances a good-looking 12-year-old boy in Los Angeles simply learned to put up with.
I already read that whole paragraph.
Yeah, I know. It's it's just like wild to me that it's just that's considered I mean, maybe it was a different time. This is like what Corey Feldman was talking about, right?
Yeah.
This was Hollywood.
On page 848, towards the end of the book, very important parts here, they still have to talk about stuff like this. This description of the hotel when it's falling apart, I think he just says at the end, he says, from one of the new slumped hills, a dirty smokestack pointed like a randy penis. It's just can we come up?
I almost wrote that one
description?
down.
I
It just pulled me out of it.
It's weird because I feel like he goes really hard with Pound Cake in the last 100 pages. There's a couple other body part landscape metaphors, and then on 551 he's talking about Morgan. And he says, mostly, however, he paced as he had in college with his hands clenched into tight and somehow anal little fists.
Similarly, I just kind of love when he's confronting Morgan, when they're having their final fight, page 730 of my edition.
I got this too.
Yeah, Jack said, "Why don't you go hump a weasel?" Morgan Sloat opened his mouth and screeched, revealing a row of square bloodstained teeth. "I'll hump your corpse!"
He said, "I'll hump your dead corpse."
Yeah, what?
What? Why in the middle?
He's lost it.
In the middle of this fight.
It's not an insult. You'd be like, "That's really weird. Don't do that."
I know. My last one I've got here is just, I love it because it's such Sloat is such a villain. He's so, and it just, so I just love this opening. Shortly after 7 a.m. on the morning following Jack and Richard's flip out from Thayer, Morgan Sloat drew up to the curb just outside the main gates of Thayer School. He parked. The space was marked with a handicapped only sign. Sloat glanced at it indifferently, then reached into his pocket, drew out a vial of cocaine, and used some of it. It's just guy pulls up.
Not only does
guy,
he park.
I know, guy pulls up at a handicapped spot, immediately pulls out cocaine and snorts it. It's what kind of villain is this?
Let me tee off Mel over here with, I think you're going to, was it one of your last ones?
You can take that one. I have a different one too.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Actually, you go last because that's right at the end.
Okay.
So my last one then is when we are going to everyone that Jack has affected at the very end. Everyone's kind of coming to realize their love for him, or they're getting their comeuppance. And we go to Buddy Parkins, who was one of the people who picked him up, who's not a pedophile.
Yes.
And I just love that this godlike experience is compared to what? Let's see here. Oh my god, that boy is there. He's there, Buddy Parkins thought, and although he had no idea of where there was, he was suddenly overtaken by a sweet, violent feeling of absolute adventure. Never, since reading Treasure Island at the age of 12 and cupping a girl's breast in his hand for the first time at 14, had he felt so staggered, so excited, so full of warm joy. Cupping that breast equals loving Jesus.
Oh boy. And then I've got on page 917. Oh boy. Let's see here. From the open seam in the Talisman, a wondrous odor spilled out with the gray golden cloud, an odor sweet and unsweet of flowers and earth, holy good, yeasty, a smell of birth. Jack thought, though he had never attended an actual birth, Jack drew it into his lungs, and in the midst of his wonder, I like this description so far. Jack drew
Except
it into
it
his
actually says yeasty.
Yeah, sure. Jack drew it into his lungs, and in the midst of his wonder was gifted with the thought that he himself, Jack O. Sawyer, was being born at this minute. And then he imagined, with a barely perceptible shock of recognition, that the opening in the Talisman was like a vagina. And then in parentheses says, he had, of course, never seen a vagina and had only the most rudimentary idea of its structure. Why
I love that they were so
thing?
committed to sticking with the vagina use there that they had to add that little bit in. Not that Jack had seen a vagina.
He'd been groped, of course, mostly in movie theaters, but he had never seen a vagina.
But I also like the fact that there's so much stuff that happens that they don't explain. I was like, we could extend our disbelief a little bit further. Thank you. You didn't need to tell us that. Yeah, sure, okay.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling full. I got to unbutton my jeans because I'm just bursting at the belly with pound cake. And on that note, I think it's time for us to go take a walk around King's Dominion.
There's another world out there.
I know there is.
Hello. Guess who we found in King's Dominion? Who is it?
It's me.
It's Dan. We thought his twinner had died, but it turns out that
Dan's just analog now. He's
a single-natured.
Yeah. So while his twinner drowned in a bathtub, Dan simply choked on some water.
That's not actually what the
yeah, it's not
was.
true.
Oh my
that
God.
was really dark. Sorry.
Well, I'm excited that Dan's back because I'm excited to hear if he's got some cool King's Dominion.
Well, I think sort of the really big one that we should probably just touch on up front is that the Talisman seems to function similarly to the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
And that is it is an axis of many worlds, and they describe it literally as such. As on page 615 of my edition, they describe it as an axis of all worlds, which is a very interesting idea. And I was reading on some message boards and things of that nature that some people think that the Dark Tower, it manifests as a rose in the Dark Tower series in that world, but maybe in Jack's world it manifests as this talisman, this crystal ball.
Which he loses, right? So who's to say it doesn't become the tower? It doesn't become something.
Because it disappears after he heals Laura or Lily.
You said after he
I've
kills
got
her.
another.
What if it did that that whole
geez.
trip? It just kills her.
Speedy had it out for her the whole time. So page 17, as early as page 17, we have Lily singing to him the Baby Bunting song, which is very, very similar to Roland's mother sings him a very similar song with the same kind of lyrics in The Gunslinger. Page 43. Speedy talks about hearing all kinds of things. You mentioned this earlier. I didn't jump on it, but he says that he heard of two-headed parrots, and there's two mentions of two-headed parrots in this, which we know Flag had a two-headed parrot in Eyes of the Dragon.
Interesting.
I would say more than the Dark Tower series. This book has Eyes of the Dragon written all over it.
Oh yeah,
we've got the two-headed parrot. We've got this. I mean, it might be a little bit of a stretch, but I think it's legit. Captain Farron has a long, pale lightning bolt of a scar zigzagging from beneath his right eye to just above his jawline. Peter has a cut zigzagging from temple to jawline, missing his left eye by hardly half an inch. Could Farron be related to? Could he be his twinner? It's kind of like a mirror scar image. We have Jack looking through the panels in a hidden chamber of the castle at the Queen. He literally slides aside some panels to look at her. We have Going Dim, which we already discussed. And then finally on page 570, we have him referencing this Western that his mom was in. And
oh, yeah.
he talks about Andy Ellis had been the cowardly kid brother who gets mad in the last reel. After skulking and cowering through the entire movie, he had gone out to face Duggan's evil minions, which reminded me, of course, of Peter's brother Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that movie also, just the idea that Jack's bringing up an old Western and
totally.
the gunslinger illusion, you know?
This whole book's like a Western, reads like a Western.
Well, I mean, I'm just like that he specifically brings up.
Oh, yeah.
Like one of Lily's movies that's Western, and that it just, and the idea of a gunslinger and everything, I think is heavy there. I'm surprised you guys missed out on page 6. Lily starred in a movie called Blaze. As we all know, Stephen King wrote a book called Blaze.
So I didn't catch that.
So here's the thing. You're right, I missed it.
I still think that Blaze is the great unsung Richard Bachman book, so I totally flag that. There's another one, or this is really, really little. It's early on. It's when Morgan Sloat remembers him hanging out with Phil Sawyer, Jack's dad, and he He remembers Phil Sawyer watching the wrestler Haystacks Calhoun on TV, who is the namesake of Ben's nickname in It. Very, very small one, but yeah.
Interesting.
I had an It one too, which is I actually think this might be mentioned in multiple books, but someone is referencing the prank when you call and say, "Do you have Prince Albert in a can?"
Oh, that's right.
And they do that. They do that in It a lot.
And we had mentioned Sidewinder earlier. Because they go through, or like Jack mentions going through Sidewinder
George
from
Hatfield.
The Shining. Yes, George Hatfield is at the school.
Yes.
And that's another Shining connection.
And I loved on $5.99. Okay, so in general, boy named Jack going into evil hotel, black hotel.
Yeah.
And then on $5.99, the Talisman is talking to him and he says, "Would you be the new Agincourt then?" The Talisman whispered, "Even a boy can be a hotel if he would be."
Hey.
Creepy.
Come on, I think that's a Shining.
I like
that's
that.
a Shining callback.
Hey, I'm down.
On page 291, Buddy Parkins almost taking Jack home to his wife and all that stuff. It's very reminiscent of Firestarter, and the old man that picks up what's her name, Charlie?
Yeah, I know the
Charlie.
section, Mac.
And then right after that, page 307, the name of the towers where the earthquake happened is Rainbird Towers.
Yes, I do remember that.
Total nod to
They also
Firestarter.
talk about echoes, like it echoed over there, and it caused something disastrous to happen. Which in Firestarter, echoes cause you to go insane. Snowballs in your head.
On 198, Morgan says, not Morgan. It's when he's remembering Jack's dad is saying this, and he's saying, "To tell the truth, I think we're affected all the time by things that go on in the territories. And should I tell you another crazy thing? Why not?" Sloat answered. "That's not the only world out there." Like, that's a line that when Jack remembers overhearing them talking, and it just very much allusions to Jake. There are more worlds than these.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of similar mentions to that
Dan,
in this.
No, totally. Dan, did you have anything that we haven't mentioned?
Well, I just wanted to ask, I'd mentioned before about the crocodile. Obviously, when they're in the blasted lands, I think they're seeing a lot of the same ravaged creatures as in the wastelands when they go through that that just sort of like desert land. You're just seeing all these sort of mutations. I did want to ask really quick about just the soft retcon and connecting to the Dark Tower. Is it supposed to be a world that just kind of runs alongside the Dark Tower, like All World, or is it is it All World, or what did they confirm, or what is King confirmed exactly about that?
So the only thing that I know that Justin told me, because he's read some of these other stories that I haven't read, but in the Little Sisters of Illyria, I think that they go to the tent that Jack goes to in the beginning.
Yeah, where he sees his mom. Yeah, that's
his mom, and so it's definitely the soft retcon is definitely putting this in Midworld.
It's just the same world, all
same
world.
I mean, because they even say things like Anders says words like "Do you ken it?" which is gunslinger slang.
There's Ironwood in this too. I forget where, but it is mentioned.
Yeah,
totally.
You guys maybe missed the biggest King's Dominion of all.
Oh my god!
Which is
you
guys already know I'm goofing.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'll just say on page 371 there is talk of a rat-like man.
Oh, I did catch that.
I didn't
miss that.
And Dan, the Rat Man forgive you this time.
That sounds like more of a 237.
That's okay. It's a little bit of a 237.
I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know if this is King's Dominion or not, but part that confused me is when Wolf is hunting, when he's full wolf, and there are two places where he can't kill things because They're ancient and hallowed and sacred. Now, is that just like King having fun for a second? Or is it like something that has come up in a couple of places?
Well,
wait, say that one more time?
I don't know.
Okay, so it says on 274 of my book, twice Wolf found that he was mysteriously forbidden from killing his prey, and this too made him feel at home in the world through which he prowled. It was a question of place, not of any abstract moral concern, and on the surface the places were merely ordinary. One was a clearing in the woods into which he had chased a rabbit, the other the scruffy backyard of a farmhouse where a whimpering dog lay chained to a stake. The instant he set a paw down in these places, his hackles rose, and an electric tingling traversed the entire distance of his spine. These were sacred places, and in a sacred place a wolf could not kill. That was all. Like all hallowed sites, they had been set apart a long time ago, so long ago that the word ancient could have been used to describe them. Ancient is probably as close as we can come to representing the vast well of time Wolf sensed about him in the farmer's backyard and the little clearing, a dense envelope of years packed together in a small, highly charged location.
Interesting.
I don't know, but I
think it's.
I get echoes of Pet
thinking
Cemetery,
very
but
weird.
like
Yeah.
Pet Cemetery is the bad version.
But yeah, well, just in the same sense that maybe a place like Thayer and a place like the Sunlight Home are just kind of, cursed places.
Well, I like to think that
or Oatley.
The chained dog was Cooge.
It's got to be Cooge. Well, and then actually, here's a really deep cut one that I had to find online, but the connection to Four Past Midnight story, The Sundog. During Kevin's nightmare in The Sundog, he dreams he is a bum in Oatley.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's more of a King's Dominion for that book, but we'll let it slide.
On 106, he says Osmond the Great and Terrible.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
But did he say the Great and Terrible?
No.
Terrible.
Oh, well, I don't know, if there is another... Yeah, I guess you're right. Like, there's connections actually to the Talisman and the Tommyknockers. But are you saying we should wait until the Tommyknockers?
Well, if it's a reveal in Tommyknockers, I think we should wait till Tommyknockers.
Okay, interesting.
Also, I've got here. So I thought Wolf crashing into the chapel and recording room was really reminiscent of the werewolves in the chapel and Cycle of the Werewolf.
Oh, yep.
It also made me think that maybe because in Cycle of the Werewolf just is. Nothing turned him into that. So I thought maybe he was maybe he's a weird twinner of a wolf.
Maybe he's Tom Cullen's twinner.
Yeah, maybe in this world. Let's see. I've got page 575 of the pocketbooks. When first introduced to the idea of daddies in the closet, all I could think of is Morgan Avoris being Mr. Beaumont Oogieman. Being the old
Boogeyman.
Love Beaumont Oogieman.
Also, page 635, Jack refers to Elroy as the Boogeyman.
So, I like to think I don't see Boogeyman as a goat creature though.
That's true.
I feel like Elroy was the one thing that the book really tried to make scary. That I was like, "There's nothing scary about this goat man."
I know. I wanted Elroy to play a larger role, but all he did was kind of, he appeared that one time, and then Jack kind of obsessed over him, and then he killed him in the train area.
Yeah. Another thing too. We already kind of mentioned that the Talisman is kind of like the Dark Tower. I really like the mention of the 818 of the pocketbooks where he says the worlds flipped by him like cards being shuffled, and it's very reminiscent of when Flag is showing Roland all the worlds with the cards at the end of Gunslinger as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love all the and Dan. Yeah, the blasted lands of the wastelands. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I thought, right?
Some of the creatures are almost like you could absolutely just think of like them, and then the whole illusion of the train going across the world is also kind of like Blaine going across the blasted lands or the wastelands. I mean,
they describe those dog creatures. I think in the Wastelands there's that great illustration of all the sort of mutated radioactive creatures they see, and I think some of them get directly described in here. And then also I think that crocodile guy is supposed to be a skin man. That's just my professorial guess, an educated guess.
Well, I think there's a Lowmen reference. Hold on. Or at least something
absolutely.
that I read as a Lowmen.
No, you're right. It's in the beginning, Randall. It's when the two men in the car are dressed in like suits and they try to kidnap Jake, and they say that when he grabs his hand, it's like skin on. It was the Cantoy thing that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, but and then there's more too though on 638.
Oh wow.
When they're in the Agincourt, or they're like trying to get to the Agincourt, So let's see here. The Agincourt reared up a short distance off to his left, flanked on the ocean side by a massive stone breakwater running far out into the water. Before it, stretching out in a line, a dozen of long black limousines, some dusty, others as polished as mirrors, sat, their motors running. Streamers of white exhaust, low-flying clouds whiter than the air drifted out from many of the cars. Men in FBI agent black suits patrolled along the fence, holding their hands up to their eyes. When Jack saw 2 red flashes of light stab out before one of the men's faces, he reflexively dodged sideways around the side of the little houses. So just the fact that this isn't the way it's described isn't like a werewolf, but just men in dressed like FBI agents, that made me just think of Low Men to a degree.
Yeah.
So
that's
all I got.
Yeah, that's all I got. Matt, Dan, any others for you?
No, I think that's it. I mean, it's kind of weird because I feel like in these stories that have these huge connections to the Dark Tower, the King's Dominion elements that they almost feel like sparse in a way because the overall concept is so tied to it. It doesn't feel like there are quite as many Easter eggs. I mean, I guess we listed a lot, but it just feels like an overall just big macro connection to the Dark Tower and the rest of King's work.
Yeah, definitely. And then also, too, it's just like Black House is where they really tie it to the Dark Tower. Like that's where the events of Dark Tower literally link with the events of Black House. So
there's just a sense of King figuring out how it's all connected here. And that's the case with a lot of his earlier books. And I think it's like Black House. And then also around that time when Wolves of the Kala came out, I think he was really starting to bind all that together.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Also, I kind of like how at the very end, how Richard and Jack start to forget everything, and that's also kind of
like.
Yeah, it's not only it like, but also a bit like the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
You know, like the cyclical nature of like once one journey's done, maybe
every
maybe
new beginning
journey,
is some other beginning's end.
Yeah.
To quote Semisonic.
Thanks.
Great band.
God.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to exit King's Dominion and move ourselves into our overall thoughts on the book.
Dad, can we go now?
You ready?
Yeah, we've been ready for an hour.
Okay, I'll be right there.
You said that a half hour ago. Yeah, my dad's weird. He gets like that when he's writing.
So, what did we think of the Talisman? I would say that I didn't love it upon reread as much as I did when I was young. I really loved this book when I was young. But I will say that if you kind of look at our discussion, we had a lot of gripes with the book, like obviously in terms of its logic, its pacing, its length, a lot of stuff like that, and even character. But we had a ton of stuff for the cemetery. Oh, yeah. And I think that there's a lot of this book is surprising in how freaky it gets and how far it goes and how violent and kind of delightfully gory it gets. And I think that there's always something pleasing about an epic. And there is something very epic about this. So I think based on those terms and the fact that I think that there's some great creatures and some great moments of action in this that I think compensate for some of the things that I gripe with a little bit. So I think overall I'm going to give it 3 bright red Pennywise clown noses.
3 big honkers.
Yep.
I echo your sentiments, but I think for me some of the most impressive details of epics come from the coherence.
Sure.
And so if that's not there for me, it really lowers it in my estimation. And this one just did such a poor job with certain elements, mainly the twinner stuff, the logic of flipping, and that world building that sort of falls into place and envelops you because you can't find a hole in it is one of my great pleasures in reading stories that have a different setting than our own. I agree that there are like some great nuggets in here, and I did get very involved. So I'm just going to lower by a half. I'm going to give it 2.5.
2.5 honkers.
Anyways, 2.5 bright red honkers.
That's 2.5 noser right there. Mac, what do you got?
As much as I had issues with it going through, I still really enjoyed it. All the way through. It wasn't. Again, I was kind of talking to Mel about this earlier in the day. There's stuff that it could be cut, but I don't know what I would necessarily cut because I just felt like it all kind of.
You'd cut Richard.
God, I would, but I wouldn't because there is, you guys made some good points. Like he does help develop Jack a little bit more. So I really just in terms of like an epic fantasy of going, you know, from one place to the next, I was on board. I love the whole wolf stuff. I'm a big wolf.
You're a
fan.
wolf head?
Wolfie. I like stumbled. I almost said it. And so I'm going to give this 3.5 bright red Pennywise clown noses. Probably the most, but I'm also I know there's others. I think my brother would stand on me with this. I think he really likes the Talisman, so I'm going to speak for the
Gerber boys,
the Talisman friends and family out there.
Dan, how about you?
Yeah, I'm with Mel as far as my rating goes, so that's a spoiler alert. And I'll announce the rating after I'm done describing why. But I don't know why I did that. I could. It's like I said before, I could forgive some of the elements that I don't love about the Talisman if just basic things like pacing and excitement were there for me. But I feel like the way this story functions, everything is just stacked and stacked and stacked and stacked. It just feels like a chain of events rather than an escalation for me, which is, I think, the big problem of the book. That being said, I'm also with Mac about Wolf. That I guess, 200-page stretch where it's just him and Wolf, that feels like a really good novella just by itself to me. So I can't say I wasn't entertained at all or anything. But yeah, the repetition and the clumsy world building and all that just really lowers it for me. So I'm going to have to go with 2.5 bright red Pennywise clown noses. I just think like I said, it feels, there are parts that feel so much more like a video game than a fantasy novel to me, and that really takes it down a lot. It was a very hard book for me to get through.
Interesting.
All right, that's an average of 2.875.
2.875 noses.
Do we have to round up? Does it get 3 then?
No, I think we're going to stick with the decimals.
Before we move to adaptations, which don't exist, but kind of...
We have some thoughts.
We had some thoughts. I had a couple of Room 237s that I missed.
Oh, okay. Bring them on.
What about room 237?
Room 237?
You're scared of room 237, ain't you?
No, I ain't.
Mr. Allen, what is in room 237?
Page 513, Jack talks about when he flips to the territories, his guitar pick turns into, he says, tortoise testicles, jokingly, but maybe they're Maturin the turtles' testes.
Oh my God.
Page,
I think definitely.
Page 626. The hourglass that they mention is filled with green sand, which I think is actually kind of a nod to dragon sand.
I could buy that.
Yeah, and then...
But green like Maturin.
Oh, God. Page 10. Page 10, we talk about Uncle Tommy was hit and killed. Is Uncle Tommy a Tommy knocker?
That's the worst.
Tommy got
Comes up
knocked.
every time. Maybe he's a Tommy knocker.
Okay.
Or a Langolier. That's what.
It's the most consistent nod to Tommy knockers, even though you probably didn't even think about it yet. It's page 790, the last one. They've gone inside. They're talking about, Morgan's talking about them going inside the Black Hotel, and he says they've gone inside where it is. And it is all caps. And it's obviously this is before it, but maybe it is it.
Maybe it's standalone.
Maybe it's it as well. Maybe it's a talisman.
We didn't talk about the very video gamey. This came up when you said it. It sounded like a video game to you, Dan. The 5 Guardian Knights that he has.
I was going to talk about that during Misery. I hated the knights that he had to defeat. That was so dumb.
You're dumb.
Okay.
I mean, even the train sequence, which I kind of liked because of all the creatures, that started to feel the same thing. I'm like, man, how many things are we going to see just coming out of the desert?
And they're just going to mow them down with their machine guns.
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
First-person shooter.
The last third of this book really felt like a video game to me, and not a very good video game at that, because video games can be fun, but not this one.
Well, let's talk briefly about the various adaptations that have almost been made.
Don't worry, Mom. I know all about cannibalism. I saw it on TV.
See? It's okay. You saw it on the television.
Well, there has been one that I actually don't think we talked about leading up to this.
Oh, the graphic novel?
Yeah, but it ended they stopped it after the first. I think it was going to be in 3 arcs, and they stopped it after the first one for whatever reason.
Where does the first arc end?
From what I remember, it ends right before he meets Wolf with the flying men coming out of the sky. I think that's like the last issue, and it's actually not bad because the artwork is I think pretty good. And I do think the Talisman does function really well as a visual novel. Like the way King describes how the world looks is cool. So you get to see some more of that, and then also just the fact that it's in a comic book form does force them to make some edits, which is really nice. It is pretty true to the overall events of the book, but they just cut out a lot of the more redundant passages. And it's the text is also by Robin Firth, who did a lot of the Dark Tower comics. So I think Robin Firth just has an understanding of that world. I honestly, if they kept going with the comics, I may have appreciated a little bit more than I had the novel. Have any of the rest of you guys read I think it's just like 5 issues or something like that.
Yeah, they only did 5 issues, and it came out it was published in hardcover as a hardcover collection in 2010. Those first issues were, and that's all that exists. They were supposed to make a second story arc, A Collision of Worlds, and that was announced for release in June 2010, but was put on hold and is yet to be released.
I'm looking at the cover that's on the wiki page that we're looking at here, and it just kind of reminds me like how tiny a 12-year-old is.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like when I see college students, I'm like, oh, they're babies. So a 12-year-old is like really a baby.
Yeah, which is, I think, the hardest thing. That's still, like, a lot of times with Jack, I was picturing him as like a 17-year-old, you know? And I'd have to remind myself, do you remember, like, my niece is 13, and you know what I mean? And it's like he's younger than her. That's insane. So
and if you look at the comic covers, you can sort of see the events they depict and the order they go in. So yeah, it was decent. I would love to see them finish it out, but I mean, it's so long. It was made so long ago now. I don't think they will. And especially if the adaptation that we'll talk about in a second gets made, I'm sure they'll do some new tie into it. But yeah, they're
a video game.
yeah, it'd be a great video game. Yeah, missed with the Talisman.
Well, obviously, so we mentioned earlier that Steven Spielberg basically bought the book back in 1984, or maybe it was 82 was when he bought the book.
Before it was released?
Yeah, before it was released. Like when they were working on it, maybe it had been announced. I just feel like 82 was the year that I've been hearing, but it came out in 84. But yeah, there was multiple attempts to try to get it made. Actually, our main man, Mick Garris, was attached at one point to do a version of it. And so let me see if I can. Yeah, it said Mick Garris commented on this back in 2001. He said, "Yes, Talisman is real. The deal was just made. It's with DreamWorks, Kennedy Marshall, and ABC. Don't know when, since the strikes might happen, but I'm about to begin the script, working from the feature draft by Richard LaGravenese. No cast yet." So, and there was a script. There was like a script written earlier that, from what I was reading, was not very loyal to the source material at all.
Would that have been a movie?
Yeah, that would have been a movie.
Interesting.
Because I think Spielberg saw it as a movie at first, from what I can read, and then they started thinking about it as a series, which I'll talk about in a moment. But yeah, and then, you know, a little bit later, like later that year, ABC has dropped the Talisman, and it was in development hell for several years. There was a lot of interviews that were about it, so there's tons of stuff out there to go look at. But the Ring screenwriter Aaron Kruger signed a 2-picture deal with Universal, and also around that time, or part of it was an adaptation of Stephen King's The Talisman for Spielberg and Kennedy Marshall. So he was behind that for a while, and then that was almost made as a TNT series, like a 6-part series for TNT. And
I mean, they know drama, so
hey, they know drama. And this would have been in the early 2000s.
I think they should add a "hey" to the slogan.
Yeah.
Hey, we know drama.
But yeah, back in back in 2003, Fangoria was reporting on it, and who was it that said this to them? Vadim Perlman said, "We're hopefully starting it this coming year and shooting it in the summer. Aaron Kruger is adapting, and it was already in process. I'm excited about it. My emotional road into this film was literally this 14-year-old boy. He got the age wrong."
Well, maybe in the script they changed something.
Yeah, the story is about this boy who travels across 2 parallel universes, ours and it, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, so, I mean, they wanted to make it happen, but let's see here if I can find some more news. The Talisman... Oh, yeah, there was supposed to be a release date in 2005. That didn't happen. Aaron Kruger was still working on it. And then he was going to work on it as a film. That didn't happen. And then there was actually news reports in 2004. Ain't It Cool News, baby? We're reporting that there was a disturbing report about how they plan to leave the scene from Sunlight Home out of the movie. Big mistake.
That would have been a huge mistake.
I know, I agree with Harry Knowles on that one.
That would have been a huge mistake for this non-existent movie.
I know, right? In 2004, there was talk about it shooting in August. Ed Zwick takes it over. Ed Zwick leaves. It's like just constant drama.
Yeah.
But then we actually got, it eventually just died. There was talk about Michael J. Fox being in it at one point. I don't know as who, but like, who would you guys cast Michael J. Fox
Probably
as?
Gardner, right?
As Gardner? I don't know if I could see that.
So who wasn't it recently going to be done by someone?
Josh Boone. Well, here's the thing.
That's right.
Josh Boone is still working on it. It's because he got hired in the fall by Spielberg's production company to write a script.
And we saw some like artwork.
Yeah,
from that,
he
right?
shared storyboards on Instagram of it that were pretty cool. And then so he's still working on the script, but obviously he's working on many, many projects as we discuss on.
Talisman's supposed to be 3 feet long, 3 feet across. That guy's holding like a little
ball.
bobble.
But yeah, there's obviously, he's working on a lot of things right now, as you'll know if you listen to our Needful Tweets episodes, which you should do. But Spielberg opened up in a recent piece about him and King having never really developed anything together, or like having it come to fruition, and basically said that he wants to make it happen the next couple of years. We've heard this before. But the wheels are moving. There's producers attached. Josh Boone is writing. Spielberg is into it. He said it publicly that he wants to make it happen. King sounds a little bit ambivalent about it. He basically was just like, yeah, something we've been trying to do for a while. And Spielberg's always owned the rights to it, and it's just never been made.
So I was just at C2E2, and I was at a panel where they were talking about how someone asked a question about how they were saying that their kids were really tired of trilogies and books that have like multiple books attached to them. They just want to read like one good story and be done. So they didn't feel like they had to read all these to get the whole shtick, you know? So part of me is like, if they ever did do something, I kind of wouldn't want them to do this because I feel like this has to be multiple movies. I think that if you did do something, I would want to see them develop another story that could just be just one movie and that's it, and really good movie.
Yeah.
I think
they should just make the sequel to Ready Player One and put some Talisman stuff in there. Just well,
Dan, is Ralph Bakshi dead?
No, he's very much alive. I've actually been rewatching all his movies.
Yeah, I think this could be a really great platform for him, because I think you could turn the territories into an animated world.
It would be cool.
Do like rotoscope and do
kind
all
of like
that
the
stuff.
Page Master.
A little bit like the Page Master.
Get Macaulay Culkin in. You know who would be a great gardener? Macaulay Culkin, and I'm not kidding.
With his
he's retired, guys.
Bring him back, baby. If anyone can bring him back, it's Daddy Steve. It's both Steves.
What were you gonna say, Dan?
Well, I was gonna say, Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings gets referenced in the Talisman. So there's
and Wizards, yeah.
I get the idea that I rewatched a bunch of old Ralph Bakshi movies, and I don't know, the guy's such a kook in a good way. I mean, I just like the way he thinks, even though some of his portrayals of different races are kind of bad from the 70s. Anyway, but I feel like he's sort of fallen out of favor in Hollywood a little bit. I think I know Cool World was a really bad experience for him, and I just think he's not looked at as being very marketable. That being said, I would love to see him do a rotoscope Talisman. I think the world is screaming for that. Yeah, it'd be awesome.
I would love to see his like Blasted Lands. Just a myriad of just creatures and just craziness.
Yeah,
he does that animated chaos so well. Even in his movies like Heavy Traffic, it's like I said, anytime he has a black character, it's kind of cringeworthy. But he creates visual chaos so well, and he can make things genuinely like grotesque and scary that I would line up to see that like in a heartbeat. And I don't even like the Talisman that much, but I think Ralph Bakshi's Talisman can be pretty cool.
Yeah, so who knows if it'll actually happen, but the wheels are turning. They've turned in the past, but I think Josh Boone and Spielberg, obviously, some solid names. I mean, I kind of think about we all love Mick Garris, right? But can we imagine what the Mick Garris version of this would look like?
Well, if it was on ABC, if it was on ABC, also, I think a lot of. I mean, I love a lot of Mick Garris's work, and he's an awesome artist. But I just think network Stephen King, you run into those issues,
Yeah,
it would be really tame and toned down, and I think that you kind of have to go full horror with this one, because I mean, honestly, the things that we loved the most about it was the cemetery.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was
all
stuff.
the spooky, creepy.
They'd have to
gross
simplify
things.
it though too. They would have to get rid of all the inconsistencies we hated.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a good screenwriter could streamline a lot of that.
Maybe
you know what I
this
mean?
could. Maybe this would make a good movie if they have to cut
Yeah.
certain things that are a little problematic and just weird and don't make sense.
Well, we'll probably have more updates in future episodes of Needful Tweets. And then also, you should, in addition to listening to Needful Tweets, you should also be listening to more shows that are on the Consequence of Sound podcast network, which we rolled out recently. There are several new shows, including TV Party, which is hosted by Allison Shoemaker, a loser alum, and Clinton Worthington. They talk about the latest in TV. They talk to a lot of hot celebs, all the people that you should want to know about. We've also got Discography and Filmography, which are music and dedicated film and music podcasts, and then also a new podcast called This Must Be the Gig, where we are talking about festival news and the latest in live music, and there's several others to check out as well. So, also Halloweenies, which features many losers on it, talking about the Halloween movies. Halloweenies. And we have a line on getting an interview with the star of one of the stars of Halloween 2 that I am very excited about. So something to look forward to. But in the meantime, please leave us a review on iTunes. Please follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and all those other things. And let's all say bye. Let's say a Talisman-themed goodbye. So I'm going to wish you a God-pounding goodbye.
Oh, you stole mine.
Just say all will be well and all manner of things will be well.
There you go. What do you got, Mac?
Blast you and may the devil be with you. I don't remember what the,
Get
the
you
meat
off,
seller said.
Get you off the skin of this world.
Yes.
Dan, Talisman-themed goodbye.
I'm gonna say goodbye, woof woof.
What did you just put Hank on the phone?
Yeah, that was
our
him,
next
actually,
book,
yeah.
Randall?
Our next book is Thinner, which is not the last Bachman book, but at the time it felt like it was the last Bachman book.
And we'll talk about that.
So we'll talk about that. But yeah, so in 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about Thinner. In a week, we'll be back with more King news or maybe some other fun stuff. We're not sure yet. So we like to ride by the seat of our pants here at the Losers Club. But so thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate it. And in the meantime, long days and pleasant nights. Bye all.
I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. But you know you want somebody to treat you good.
Consequence Podcast Network.